Good evening. This is the June 24th public hearing of the City of Evanston's Land Use Commission. The zoning ordinance directs this body to hear applications for map and text amendments, special uses, major variations, plan developments, appeals of the zoning administrator's decisions, as well as to make recommendations regarding the city's long-term planning goals and objectives. Depending on the type of matter, this commission will either be the determining body or make a recommendation for City Council. Mr. Bebo, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravalo, Commissioner Berlin,
Here.
Commissioner Harris-Furry, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Lindwall,
Here.
Commissioner Mombadi, Commissioner Mangum,
Here.
Commissioner Miranchev,
Here.
and Chair Puctel.
Here. With 5 commissioners present, we have quorum, and we can continue. Also present tonight from city staff are Development Services Supervisor Jeremiah Bebo and Senior Planner Sam Hubbard and Assistant City Attorney Brian George. This is a formal hearing, and there are rules that govern these proceedings. Anyone who wishes to address the commission on any matter on the agenda tonight will have an opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. For cases, our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. Any person with legal interest within the defined notification requirements of the subject property may then present evidence, submit questions for the applicant or appellant, or seek a continuance of the hearing. Please be sure to sign in on the public comment sheet. If there are many people signed up to speak, commission rules allow the chair to limit the amount of time for each person's testimony. All testimony will be taken under oath. When testifying, please state your name and address for the record. All testimony from presenters and members of the public, including specific questions for the applicant or appellant, shall be directed to the commission. Although we do not follow strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony to the proposal as it relates to the standards within the zoning ordinance and staff memorandum. These meetings are audio and video recorded, so it is critical that only one person speaks at a time and that the speaker is at a microphone so that all testimony provided is properly recorded. We expect a high level of decorum to be maintained during these meetings, which includes preserving the right of every person speaking tonight to do so without interruption. Accordingly, reactions from the room, such as cheering or booing during or after testimony, are not allowed. Those unable to maintain decorum will be asked to leave. When all testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the commission will close the record and begin deliberations to consider the standards. The commission will make formal findings of fact based on the testimony and evidence presented, guided by the standards, and the commission's knowledge of the community and the recommendations of staff. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting or to a date certain. Okay, there are 2 main cases on the agenda tonight. One is old business and one is new business. Are the applicants for both of those cases present?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I will now conduct the oath statements for both in-person and virtual attendees. If you plan to provide testimony in any of the cases scheduled for tonight, please raise your right hand and say yes if you agree with this statement. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you will provide in connection with this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. Okay. The first item of business is review and approval of minutes from May 27th.
Chair, really quick, were you going to address potentially a motion to reorganize the agenda?
I was right after this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes. Are there any edits or comments?
Yes. With respect to the Amazon Fulfillment Center on Main Street, I recused myself, yet on page 5 for the vote, it shows me voting. I have recused myself, and then I will defer to others, but were there conditions? I don't recall if there were conditions associated with that approval.
There were conditions added, yeah, and I don't know why those didn't make it into the minutes, but we will get those added in there. They are included with the record.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or edits on the May 27th meeting minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from, I'm sorry, I have mine, thought I had it open here, no, I can't find it. I move to approve the meeting minutes from May 27, 2026 meeting.
Moved
Second.
by Berlin, second by Mangum. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? All those abstain? Okay, and that passes with unanimous consent. Let the record show that Commissioner Johnson has joined us. Welcome. And before we move on to the next item on the agenda, I'd like to propose that we actually flip the two items on the agenda and we do the sign plan first, as we're anticipating that that's not too contentious, and then finish with the Three Crowns project. So if a commissioner agrees with me, can you please make a motion to do that?
I would move that we switch the order of the agenda items to deal with the unified sign plan first.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? All abstain? All right, that passes with unanimous consent. Okay, therefore, we will move on to the item, the unified sign plan first. Can we please have staff read that case into the record?
Thank you, Chair. So really quickly, so unified sign plans are special entitlement processes specifically for signage on private property that include a public hearing and review and approval by the Land Use Commission. Unified sign plans are typically reserved for larger properties and land uses. In order to apply for one, the property must meet at least one of 6 criteria contained within the zoning ordinance. Here tonight, Northwestern University, as the owner, is requesting approval of a unified sign plan for the Kirkpatrick Stadium located at 1501 Central Street within the U2 University Athletic Facilities District. The Land Use Commission is the determining body for this case.
Thank you. Can the applicant please join us at the lectern and tell us about the project?
Sure. My name is Brent Ross. I'm an architect with Perkins & Will, presenting on behalf of the university. So the stadium, here we're going to present basically the locations of the signage around the facility. Most of our signs are unlit except for one that is halo lit. So if we go to the next page. Oh. There we go. So it might be a little bit difficult on some of the screens, but the purple dots are the locations of the signs around the plan, and there's multiple plans here showing the locations, and then we'll get into more detailed drawings that show the kind of the scale of the signs that we're talking about. So here you can kind of see at the concourse level, facing the field. And here at the upper press box level. So near the entry, there is a plaque, kind of with a list of the donors and a story behind the dedication. Here you can kind of see an overall rendering of the project that shows the main large exterior signage components, the banners and the large logo. So here's a detail of the large logo above the entry to the softball stadium, or the main spectator entry to the softball stadium. This is the one lit sign on the project. It is halo lit, so the lights are embedded within the purple N and are kind of shine back towards the precast, at this location. So it'll just be a little bit of a halo around the logo. Here you can see kind of the naming of the facility, Kirkpatrick Stadium, beneath that Northwestern logo. And just another view from eye level as you approach the stadium, showing those signage as well as the banners along on the adjacent kind of pylons. So the banners are large banners with a frame. There is a light that is externally casting light on that sign that was part of the building permit. And here's kind of an initial rendering of what that graphic would be. Moving to the interior of the stadium, we do have signage recognizing donors on the, facing the field. So this is the Kirkpatrick Stadium, as well as it's currently named the Sharon J. Drysdale Field. And here you can kind of see a detail showing the height of the letters at that location. There's an additional plaque kind of below those letters on the concourse level that folks can read. And here's kind of a rendered image, so you can see the letters facing the softball field, and you do see kind of that small plaque adjacent to that entry where people come into the stadium. Moving down kind of along on the east elevation of the building, we do have a Northwestern logo that's kind of embedded in the concrete, and then a naming sign above the entry to the softball team space. And you'll see a detail here of those letters, the height, kind of pin-mounted channel letters on the exterior of the building, along with a small plaque that actually faces the niche at the entrance to the team space. Here's an image of the rendering showing the logo embedded in the concrete, the letters above that entry, and the small plaque adjacent to those doors. We do have dugout signage over the dugouts, so there are some small signs indicating donors at each dugout. So here you can see kind of a plaque and dugout signage name. And so that is the extent of the exterior signage on the building, showing the lettering size and location. This is just an overall site plan. I don't know if I can laser point, but the north is up, so that signage along the east side of the facade faces to the right of the page. So, are there any questions?
Mr. Bebo, can we just clarify as the context of why we're receiving the sign plan? Tell me if I'm characterizing this correctly. That we have a sign ordinance, and if all of the provisions of the sign ordinance were applied to everything happening in this development, they would run into all kinds of hurdles in that, and therefore they've been proactively advised by you to proactively create a sign plan that kind of sidesteps those and specifically has all the sign details in one package. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. And it offers us the ability to give kind of a holistic review of all the signage that they're going to put on the building. Again, usually reserved for either larger singular buildings or some instances where you might be redeveloping it a large block in order to be able to review the signage holistically. And in some cases that the signage otherwise wouldn't meet the regulations of the sign code.
Thank you. And is there anything, in your opinion, in the sign plan that deviates from the details of the look and feel of the project as submitted when they permitted for the building itself?
No. And this was also so the field itself got reviewed by the city council and approved by the city council, and review of this sign plan was a condition of approval of the city council's approval of the major PD amendment.
Okay. Other questions by commissioners? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Did anybody who signed up to speak tonight plan to do so to talk to this case? Seeing none. Okay. With that, I will close the record and move on to Commissioner deliberations.
Well, I think this is a pretty straightforward approval and don't see any particular issues with it. So I think, barring anyone else who wants to speak, I would suggest you go through the standards.
Any other comments from commissioners? Okay. In that case, I will move on to going through the standards. So you can see this on page 72 of the packet. They're unique standards for a unified sign plan. So they might seem fresh. What I'll do is I'll go through each one and I'll say my opinion about whether or not they're met based on what I'm gathering from the group. And then I'll pause, and if you disagree with what I said, that's your opportunity to jump in and say so. Okay, so standards for approval. The proposed development must follow the standards found in City Code Section 6-19-14D. For the Land Use Commission to recommend approval of the proposed unified sign plan, the Land Use Commission must find that the proposal meets the following standards. Every sign shall have a good scale and proportion in its design and in its visual relationship to the other signs, buildings, and surroundings. We've seen that it is proportionate and appropriate. Number 2, the signs in the plan shall be designated as integral architectural elements of the building and site to which they principally relate and shall not appear as incongruous add-ons or intrusions. We haven't seen any evidence to that effect, and it seems that the signs blend in well with their surroundings. Number 3, the colors, materials, and lighting of every sign shall be restrained and harmonious with the building and site to which it principally relates. We feel that it's harmonious. Number 4, the number of graphic elements and letters shall be held to the minimum needed to convey each sign's message and shall be composed in proportion to the area of the sign's face. We have seen a plan that is minimal, limited, and thoughtful. Number 5, each sign shall be compatible with signs on adjoining premises and shall not compete for attention. We've seen no evidence to that effect. And lastly, number 6, the effect of the signs proposed in the plan shall be the establishment of a unified image for the center. What we've seen looks internally consistent with itself. Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion for approval.
With respect to Northwestern University Kilpatrick Stadium Unified Sign Plan, 1501 Central Street, permit number 26ZMNV-0030. I move approval with the addition of the condition noted on page 71 that the applicant shall construct the associated improvements to the subject property in substantial compliance with the documents held on record and all applicable city code requirements and the applicant's testimony and representations to the Land Use Commission.
Thank you. Moved
I second.
and seconded. Mr. Bebo, can we have a vote?
All right. Commissioner Arvalo, Commissioner Berlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris-Free, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Linwall,
Yes.
Commissioner Mombadi, Commissioner Mangum,
Yes.
Commissioner Marinchev,
Yes.
and Chair Pucktall.
Yes. That passes 6-0. Good luck with your plan, and you can follow up with city staff for next steps. Okay, now we're going to move on to the item for 3 Crowns on the agenda. This was a case that was continued from a prior meeting. So the way it's going to work tonight for this situation is that public testimony that already occurred at the prior meeting is closed. I see that some people did sign up on the sheet outside. If you were planning to speak to this case, I'm sorry, public comment is closed. If you were planning to speak to another matter, you can wait until the public comment portion of the agenda at the end. What we're going to do is that the 6 people that had continuance requests approved are prepared to come up first and give their presentations. You are going to be allowed 5 minutes per presenter, plus an additional 5 minutes if you brought someone with you to support your arguments. And then then we'll have those 6 people give their presentations. Then the applicant will have 20 minutes for a closing statement and or rebuttal. And if there's other requests for cross-examination, that's really not my favorite thing, but if people really want to do that, we can manage that as well in terms of receiving comments to the commission and being managed in a organized way. So then after that, there will be Q&A from the commissioners excuse me, I'm out of order. There'll be Q&A of the commissioners for the applicant as well, and then deliberation. Okay, so with that, I will start with the people that had continuance requests. So I have 6 people signed up. First will be Emily Nash, followed by Julian Honowitz.
I actually have copies of the deck here. And hopefully I won't need much more than 5 minutes, but I do have plenty of people here behind me as well. So hopefully you'll give me a little discretion if I need to go just a bit over. Can I go ahead and get started? Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Emily Nash. I live at 2405 Colfax Street, and I am one of more than 200 Evanston residents who oppose the construction of a new parking lot at 3 Crowns. Just to put that into perspective, each one of these pinpoints up here represents a person who may not be here in person tonight, but who opposes this and who cares very deeply about our neighborhood and its future and about this project. When the applicant told you at our last hearing that some neighbors are opposed and others are in favor of this lot, that was true. But what they did not acknowledge is that once neighbors found out what 3 Crowns' actual needs are in terms of additional parking from this renovation, they were overwhelmingly opposed. Those opposed outnumber those in favor by about 10-1 in the comments that have come in during this period. At the last meeting, 3 Crowns said they received over 200 responses to a survey that was mailed out to nearby residents in October. But as you'll see here, the response rate was far lower than that. It was 168, which I guess is maybe about a third of all who received it. The street parking option here was pretty vague, and it was heavily overstating the potential overflow onto the streets. It references 40 new cars being added to current street parking. It was unclear to some of us in what manner that would be taken from the street spaces, whether maybe that would involve some kind of sticker that meant that those spaces were for 3 Crowns people and not available to us and to our visitors and other guests. And the Kimley Horn findings, which you heard about at the last meeting, came later and were not disclosed to residents. After the last hearing, I went back and I took a look at the zoning analysis the city performed in connection with the original plan development that this proposal seeks to amend. And as you'll see here, the requirements were roughly the same. It looks like, in fact, when there were 44 assisted living units, they required a few more spaces than they will now require when the new independent living units are built. And importantly, I would note for you that Mr. Kissel's testimony at the last hearing was that the conversion of the Pioneer building will lead to a reduction in density from the pre-2019 levels, a reduction in density. As its name suggests, Three Crowns Park is not like the other senior living communities in Covenant Living's portfolio. I just did a Google Earth search of a couple of their other properties, one in Batavia, Illinois, one in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I then looked on Google Maps, and there is absolutely nothing within walking distance of either of these properties. These are not places that are remotely like Evanston or like this particular part of Evanston. By contrast, within a 10 to 15 minute walk of Three Crowns, here's just a smattering of the different places you can reach by foot. You can go to the post office, the eye doctor, the hardware store, a pet food store, multiple restaurants, coffee shops, the dentist. There's just a ton of stuff that's within a very short walk of where I live and where Three Crowns is located. And I would venture to guess that that attribute of its location is as appealing to independent living residents of Three Crowns as it is to families like ours. My husband and I lived in our house for several years with just one car, even though we have 3 children and we both have jobs that are based in downtown Chicago. At the last hearing, Commissioner Berlin asked if the property is in a transit-friendly neighborhood. And so I just wanted to be clear about this. By the applicant's own admission, the property is located approximately a half mile from the Central Street Metro stop. You don't need to take me at my word for that. That's in the report that Mr. Kissel prepared. And being within a half mile of a Metro stop, as this property is, means that it is a transit hub under the new Illinois People versus Parking Act. Mr. Kissel also references nearby bus lines a short distance away. Among the many features that draw people to Evanston are its walkability and green space. I don't need to belabor this point too much because we all know why we like to live in Evanston. But a recent Chicago Magazine article actually ranked Evanston number 1 for mobility and number 6 for green spaces. There we go. Evanston's known as a tree city. We promote the fact that as summers grow hotter, protecting and expanding our green spaces helps keep Evanston cooler while enhancing our community's quality of life. Less than 6 months ago, the city adopted a new comprehensive plan, and its description of the 6th Ward, where Three Crowns sits, focuses on the vitality of the Central Street Business District, as well as the green parkways and the front lawns in our neighborhood.
Hi, could you please summarize the rest of your arguments?
Yes. I would just like to note here that the controlling plan, when Mr. Kissel drafted his report, is the old plan. So I just want to make sure that as we are considering, everything here, we are looking at it in the context of the new plan. 2 last points I'd like to make here, and I'll try to be brief, I promise. Three Crowns may operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But there don't seem to be many staff or visitors there at night. I walked by the property a few nights ago, and there's barely any cars parked on the street. There were 4 when I looked outside, and there were ample available spaces in the front parking lot on McDaniel. And in closing, at the last hearing, the applicant said change can be hard, but this isn't just any change. This is a change that would destroy the space that is a vital bridge between the most vulnerable residents of Three Crowns, who you see here, and those who live in the greater community. Most of the community events my family has attended have been directly across the street at the green space and fountain that they propose to pave into parking. The relationship between Three Crowns and the neighborhood is a good one. It really is. And the care and dedication of Three Crowns staff, which you heard so much about at the last hearing, has never been in question. We look forward to welcoming these new independent living residents to the neighborhood. But at a certain point in this process, a corporation made a decision to build a parking lot that it has not demonstrated that it needs. And despite overwhelming opposition and them telling you themselves that it would be cheaper and easier not to build this parking lot, for whatever reason, their heels are dug in here. I can't tell you why. The agenda packet for this hearing includes a letter from Transportation and Parking Consultant KLOA. If you didn't have a chance to look at that, I do have copies here. If anyone would like one, just let me know. But KLA concludes that the existing parking can easily absorb the projected new demand. So against that backdrop, I think taking a wait and see approach to any new parking lot is the responsible thing to do. I urge you to recommend against allowing the applicant to build this lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Julian Honowitz, followed by James Phillips.
I'll take a copy of the letter, please, that you referenced.
Yes, thanks. Go.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of neighbors of the 2400 block of Colfax Street. My name is Julian Honowitz. I live at 2401 Colfax. We're really here about one specific element of the Three Crowns proposal, which is the off-street parking. I know that I have 5 minutes. I'm going to try and keep to that time. Obviously, I would appreciate a little bit of flexibility, especially when clickers don't work. There we go. So really broadly here, our position is that we support Three Crowns, we support this redevelopment, and our opposition is narrow. It's really to the proposed 28-space street-level parking lot. Our case really rests on 3 grounds. We don't believe that the data shows that there's a need for this parking lot. The harm here is going to be irreversible, and that the proposal requires variances that have been long-standing and which we don't believe should be granted. So others are going to touch on various parts of this. I'm really going to focus on the data and the parking study that was performed. So let's look at how many spaces actually sit open at peak existing times. So out of 241 spaces in the neighborhood, that is specifically only the adjacent streets, only 154 are currently occupied at the absolute peak. So that's about 64%, meaning that there's 87 empty spaces at any given time. On a weekend, even at the off-street peak, 55 off-street spaces remain available. So you've got 64 on-street spaces, which in total is about 119. And on a weekday, the tighter of the two, 27 off-street spaces are still free, and another 60 on-street spaces go unused. So now we're talking about 87 spaces. So in every scenario here, there's dozens of empty spaces on-street and off-street, even at the busiest times. And KLOA, who you heard about just a moment ago, was a traffic consultant who reviewed the Kimley-Horn study and has confirmed that the facility has adequate parking for its existing needs. So let's look at what comes next. What about after the redevelopment? That's obviously what all of us are here for and focused on. And even then, the Kimley-Horn study and KLOA show that only 13 additional spaces would ever be needed. We don't feel that that justifies a new parking lot, especially in light of the existing capacities. So on weekends, demand rises. 55 off-street spaces are already empty and able to absorb any additional capacity from the expansion. So there's no weekend need. Now on a weekday, what we're looking at is at most 13 spaces, 13 cars that are going to spill onto the street, right? So now we're looking at 13 cars, but there's 60 open spaces. So the surplus already exists. We saw that. The math just simply doesn't call for a new construction. And why does it matter? Well, in our view, it matters because Three Crowns Park's public claims don't match its own study. Now, in their May 7th letter to neighbors, they claimed that the renovation would generate demand for 35 additional on-street spaces. But that's not what the Kimley-Horn analysis shows. It's not what KLOA has found. And 27 spaces are unoccupied at peak hour. In fact, that's what you can see off on the right. I'm showing that there's existing peak utilization of 92 spaces and 120 out of the 147 off-street spaces. And unoccupied capacity was noted at 55 and 27. So on the left, we can see that there is no, does demand exceed excess capacity? No. So there's no additional parking needed. And on the right, during the weekdays, it's limited to 13 spaces. I'm going to focus here on the second claim, which we've seen, which is that there's a need for 28 surface spaces to move staff out of the underground garage. So they've stated that of the 103 underground spaces, 80 are reserved for residents, 23 for staff, but many of these sit unused or misallocated. As their own representative acknowledged, every apartment gets a space, whether it's used or not, and Three Crowns hasn't shown that they can't solve this by simply optimizing the parking they already have. So a new lot isn't going to fix unused underground spaces. In fact, if one looks at the Kimley-Horn study, it's clear that parking lot usage climbs during the day and then lessens towards the evening. I just have a small piece to go here. If the reason for the increased parking utilization of the underground lot is due to the arrival of staff, which is what we would expect during the day, then it suggests that a significant number of residents have assigned spaces that they simply aren't using. How else are we going to get 27 open spaces even at peak hours? If it were truly the case that every single spot was filled, there shouldn't be 27 available spaces at any given time at peak hours, might I add. Now, what's the cost of getting it wrong? Well, it's permanent, right? A lot that sits largely empty would remove mature trees and green space along Colfax that the neighborhood's not going to get back. It's going to add impervious surface. It's going to worsen storm runoff and heat and all the other things that folks have spoken to. And it runs directly against Envision Evanston 2045, the city's own plan prioritizing climate action and healthy spaces. Its users are staff and vendors during the workday, mornings, evenings, and weekends. In contrast, it will be an empty eyesore. And here I want to pause a moment to say that neighbors understand that parking is dynamic. So residents, visitors, employees, they come, mostly during the day, as Three Crowns explained at the last meeting, but they also go. And when they go, in the evenings and through to the mornings, as Emily showed in her presentation, or when there's sufficient existing on-site parking, such as on weekends, the newly proposed parking lot will sit unused, inefficiently utilized, just as the existing underground parking currently is. And so here's our request. Deny the variance and require that Three Crowns Park revise its site plan to remove the Colfax lot. The data doesn't support that that is needed. If the commission were to find that additional parking is warranted, we would ask, as in our view, there's really only one acceptable alternative, which would be to restrict it to McDaniel. That street already has a lot. It faces a school rather than homes, and expansion there does the least harm. So with that, I'll conclude, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is James Phipps, and then followed by Katie Armistead.
I'm embarrassed. I do not have anything for the screen. That was quite impressive, though. I was very impressed.
You don't have to.
I don't have to? You sure? Okay, well, all right. I submitted written comments, and I'm really just going to elaborate a little on, or correct a little on some of those, but, you know, I'm the valet parking guy, and now listening to the last presentation, so there's already unused spaces down there, but I think that with valet parking, we have no issues whatsoever, particularly if there's already unused spaces. I'm concerned with what I heard from the last time, that there are spaces that are being underneath the, in the park, underground parking that aren't being used for parking. They're being used for HVAC or plumbing, or they're designed so you can't get in and out of them, and that should be fixed. But if you have valet parking, they don't use the lines the way they are. So I just think that should be investigated more, and I think that Three Crowns has the information we need for that, and they ought to provide how many spaces they can provide if it's valet parked. They ought to tell us what they can do to free up those spaces that aren't currently usable, and they have to give us protection that they're not going to convert that space down there to some other use. And I addressed that in my comments. I also think that, that valet parking is probably better for the residents. If I was a resident there, being able to just go down, pick up my car and drive out and not have to wander through the space would be better. Also think that, do none of those residents have electric cars? Because they're going to have EV spots down there to charge those cars. Well, if you got valet parking, you can have a row of EV and your valet people can just park, charge your cars for you. So I just think that, they haven't fully thought this out. Second choice is, I don't think they gave adequate consideration to doing other underground parking. And there are spaces there without ruining the green space where they could have put underground parking, and I addressed that. And the third thing is just in terms of alternative spaces. They have this magic number 28, and we can reach that 28 in a variety of different ways without parking up Colfax. If you look at the service drive, they haven't focused on this, but they in the service drive they add 4 additional spaces, 2 on either side of the 4. Now I wish I should have put that up and I could point it out to you, but there's 4 spaces when you enter the service drive, and they're going to put 2 on either side to make that 8 spaces, and they're perpendicular spaces. It involves taking out 2 big trees. They promised us that they would test the health of those trees to decide whether they could take it down. I've never seen anything on that. There are 2 big green ashes. One green ash has a lot of dead at the top, probably comes out. The other one, actually, the more I look at it, I'm not sure it's bad or not. So 2 spaces by taking out 1 green ash, 2 more spaces by taking out the other green ash. And then, but if one of those trees they can't take out, the one would be the one closest to the building. It's also not sitting in where the perpendicular spaces are. So if you lost those 2 spaces, you could just put another parallel parking space right there, so you only lose 1. But the bottom line is I go through my number count, counting down from the 28 in my paper, or in my comments. So, something needs to be done there. Then I'm embarrassed because I did my whole parking count, and I did gaining 7 spaces on that back lot, so 28 goes to 21. Then I propose that you do cutout spaces, carve-out spaces along the west side of McDaniel, because the room is there now to do that. And you can do 14 more spaces there. That's 14 spaces right across the street from the front door. And then, so that's 14 from 21 left me with 7 spaces. And I propose that you put those in a lot that goes, that would be just south of the McDaniel lots that are there now. What I forgot when I did this, and it's embarrassing, is that I got down to 7 spaces, but I forgot to add in the 4 spaces along the north McDaniel lot that they took out so that they could do the, do their Colfax. So that's actually 4 spaces that I gain. So my 7 spaces becomes 3 spaces. At that point, you only need 3 spaces. And there is plenty of room to put those 3 spaces along McDaniel. My time's up. I was, if I can just, one more thing. The percentage of frontage that's used by the existing parking is 7.5%. So 7.5% of the frontage along all 4 streets. If you just use the additional McDaniel spot that I'm talking about, that 7.5 goes up to 13, almost 14, 13.86, but who's counting that closely? 14%. If you do what Three Crowns has proposed, you're using up almost 31% of the frontage. So they're using, I mean, they're by doing what they're doing, they're just using a whole lot more green space than they actually need to do, particularly since the focus of all this traffic should be on McDaniel, which is the busy street, and not having cars go off on, you know, Colfax is the worst. It's a one-way street, and it's the narrowest of the streets. Pioneer is bad because I live there. And Davis, you know, Davis is busy, but I think most of this traffic is going to go around, go down Pioneer, go to Davis to get over to McDaniel. So we're all suffering a lot. Grant, thank you. Grant to get to McDaniel. And that's just, you know, that traffic flow is just, you know, bad for the neighborhood. Anyway, I ask you to read my comments. I'm sorry they're so long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Katie Armstead, followed by Lori Keenan.
Good evening. My name is Katie Armistead, and my husband Steve and I reside at 2402 Pioneer Road with our 3 young children. Charlotte is going into 2nd grade at Lincolnwood. Eric is 4, and Emma, our baby, just turned 2. We are here to express our strong continued opposition to the proposed construction of the Three Crowns street level parking lot. We echo the valid concerns raised previously, but we're here to highlight an additional concern regarding pedestrian safety and the safety of our children and our neighbors that the Three Crowns proposal appears to completely fail to take account for. As I'm sure you're likely aware, Evanston-Skokie School District 65 is currently undergoing historic school closures and restructuring. Beginning this August with the closure of Kingsley Elementary School and the opening of Foster Elementary School, the attendance boundaries for Lincolnwood Elementary School are going to change dramatically. This is going to directly result in increased pedestrian traffic around Three Crowns for families who live east of Pioneer Road. In your agenda packet, we provided the updated attendance boundaries, and you can see the move east from Pioneer right by our house all the way over to Green Bay Road. As a direct result of the district-wide changes, approximately 100 incremental students will be walking or riding bicycles from east of our home on Pioneer Road to Lincolnwood Elementary School starting this August. Compounding the influx of young pedestrians, District 65 expects to reduce the number of crossing guards at Lincolnwood Elementary from 4 to 2 due to budgetary constraints, including one that is stationed directly adjacent to the proposed street-level parking on the corner of McDaniel and Colfax. We raise these concerns because, to our knowledge, Three Crowns has conducted no safety study, let alone one that considers the incremental pedestrian traffic of children beginning in 2 months. Three Crowns' own expert assumes pedestrian circulation will remain unchanged. Finally, many District 65 families directly impacted by the proposed street-level parking at Three Crowns reside further than 1,000 feet from Three Crowns, appear to be completely unaware of the proposed plan and have not been given a meaningful opportunity to participate in this process. We respectfully request that the Commission deny the Three Crowns requested variances. The proposal, we believe, compromises student safety during a major transition for the Evanston Public Schools. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay, next is Lori Keenan, followed by Leslie McMillan.
Hi, I'm not sure you guys can hear me. I'm calling in from Zoom. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Lori Keenan. I live at 2214 Colfax Street with my husband. We've raised our 3 adult now kids there. Last month, several commissioners asked for additional information. In response, I will submit photographs taken in the days immediately following the last Land Use Commission meeting. Those images will tell an important story. They show significant available street parking throughout the surrounding neighborhood, including times when we've been told parking demand is at its peak. They also show standing water and flooding in nearby neighborhood blocks and adjacent forest preserve areas following rainfall events. Together, the photos raise a simple question: why is additional surface parking necessary? Three Crowns' own parking study, as has been mentioned by several others tonight, shows available parking capacity even during peak demand periods. Yet, area residents have never been presented with a true alternative that eliminates the need for a new surface lot. I met with other concerned residents with Councilmember Periel Davis. I'm a 7th Ward member, who specifically asked city staff repeatedly for information regarding stormwater retention, and we were provided no information on this issue until a half an hour before this meeting started tonight. This is information we've been asking for almost since the last time you met. For this reason alone, I might ask for an additional continuance. Before paving over green space, the commission should require a thorough evaluation of alternatives, including utilizing existing underground parking capacity, of which there's plenty, restriping the existing parking areas for greater efficiency, including the underground lots, operational changes that might maximize existing parking resources, valet parking, which we were told was too expensive by Three Crowns management and staff, but existed pre-COVID. So what is the cost of each of these units? Presumably, the cost alone would fund what Three Crowns' own management company themselves have said are minimum wage employees. The burden should be on the applicant to demonstrate why these options are insufficient. Peak parking hours are noted as weekdays at 3 p.m. and Sundays. Could not Lincolnwood School surface lots provide additional available parking? There are also significant policy concerns. Again, this has been mentioned by some of the other residents. The request flies in the face of Evanston's CARP, the Climate Action Resilience Plan, which specifically calls for expanding and preserving the urban canopy and green space, investing in green infrastructure, reducing vulnerability to flooding, protecting and expanding natural areas, revising regulations to reduce parking requirements. Those goals are difficult to reconcile with replacing trees and open green space with additional pavement for parking. The flooding photographs, which I'll submit in a minute, are especially relevant. CARP recognizes that green infrastructure and natural landscapes help reduce flooding risks and improve climate resilience. The proposal also raises important land use compatibility questions. Three Crowns is an institutional use located within a residential neighborhood. As Evanston updates the comprehensive plan and Envision Evanston 2045, the city has repeatedly emphasized thoughtful land use, neighborhood compatibility, and balancing community needs, especially in providing, and this is specific language, in providing buffer in transitional zones such as these between institutions and neighborhoods. If this parking lot goes through, that would be a 5-foot buffer. So several key questions remain unanswered. Has the traffic study been completed, as Katie just mentioned? The safety. What will be the impact of additional vehicle movement on already constrained residential streets for safety or otherwise? What will be the impact of the expanded lighting on nearby homes? Why has a true no surface parking alternative been presented? Residents are not opposing Three Crowns Park expansion. We support senior housing and adaptive reuse of the existing building. What we oppose is a permanent loss of mature trees and green space without a demonstrated need and without full exploration of the alternatives. More than 200 residents from the 6th and 7th wards, and again, this is unusual because Three Crowns is on the dividing line between the 6th and 7th ward. More than 200 residents have signed a petition expressing these concerns. We respectfully ask the Commission to require a more complete justification for the proposal and thorough evaluation of alternatives before approving a permanent conversion of green space into pavement. And I ask that you deny this variance. Is it possible, Sam, are you able to share the PDF that I sent to you, or is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yes, the PDF was shared, sliding throughout the different slides while you were speaking.
Okay, so, and if you look carefully at these slides, and primarily on Colfax Street, you can see there is, I mean, you could shoot a cannon through the place on most days, and often this is just after your last meeting. So it shows various times of day and various days of the week, and some of these at the times that they say are peak use and necessary for additional parking needs. One other thing that I wanted to make a point of is on McDaniel, which is, there's a slide that shows the Thursday, May 28th at 3:10 p.m. The Three Crowns management said that the city forestry department said there are oak saplings there that existed, and that was, you know, basically sacrosanct, and we couldn't possibly take down those trees. But if you look carefully, there is one oak sapling, but the rest of those trees in that area in the courtyard are not oak trees. Those are other trees that have been planted. My suspicion is that the people who have bought their units didn't choose to overlook the parking lot.
Ms. Keenan, I just want to, could you please summarize the rest of your arguments?
Yeah, just that I think the existing parking is plenty. There are a number of ways that if it's not, that the underground use could be more efficient and better utilized. I think it flies in the face of CARP and Envision Evanston, and I'm asking you to please deny the variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the last presentation will be from Leslie McMillan. Is that person online? Leslie, if you're online, please unmute yourself. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, thank you very much for everybody for your comments and all the time and effort you put into those. We do appreciate those thoughtful comments. What we will do now is move to the applicant. You'll have 20 minutes, and please tell us about a rebuttal, thoughts from last meeting.
Thank you, and good evening, members of the Land Use Commission. My name is Lenny Asaro. I'm the attorney. I'm the attorney who represents the applicant, Three Crowns Park. My first question to the chair is whether or not the chair deems anything that's been presented in writing and orally today needs information to be brought out on cross-examination, because I do have cross-examination, and this is a legal proceeding, so I don't know what, if anything, is being considered by this commission. And the chair, I'm being respectful of the chair, indicated that they don't particularly favor cross-examination. So I don't want to offend the commission, so I'm asking, is this commission considering anything that's been presented? Because if they aren't considering the KLOA two-page letter, or if they're not presenting any of the assertions and opinions.
The opportunity for cross-examination was from the continuance requesters to the applicant, and I didn't hear anything tonight from any of those presenters stating that they wish to cross-examine you.
I'm asking about our right to cross-examine. That's what I'm asking. And you had indicated at the very beginning that you don't prefer cross-examination. And so I can make this really expedient, because if you're not considering any of the substance that's been presented by the objectors, then I don't really need to ask any questions on cross-examination of the evidence that has been presented, for example, the two-page letter, nor would I need to ask any questions of anyone who made assertions or opinions today in support of the opposition of the variance for the parking. So I'm asking for direction from you. I don't want to waste anybody's time.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to staff.
Yep, and the rules and procedures do allow the applicant the opportunity to cross-examine any of the people or expert witnesses that presented continuances tonight. So that is an option that the applicant has.
No, and I realize we have the option. I'm just asking out of deference and respect for the chair. You had indicated at the very beginning that you don't prefer cross-examination, so I don't want to actually engage in cross-examination if I don't need to. but I would need to if you're considering any of the opinions or the two-page letter from KLOA. That's what I'm asking for direction.
I'm a little.
I would,
Yeah.
I believe that we do need to consider the evidence that was presented this evening, so I
Thank
would
you.
suggest that you proceed with your cross-examination if you wish.
Yeah, I mean.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. I
That
mean,
was my
what people
question.
presented is part of the record, and it's new information. So I'll.
Out of respect to you and
Yeah.
the commission, I was actually being deferential because you had indicated that you don't prefer cross-examination.
Yeah, I understand. It's your decision. Won't harm you either way, your choice to do so.
Okay. Well, to the extent that it is being considered, which I assumed that it would be considered, and thank you for that clarification. I'd like to start first with the requester, Ms. Nash. And I'd like to go to I'd like to actually to ask questions of Mr. Lue Abuna, who is the author of the two-page letter that's in the packet that was provided to you by Ms. Nash as part of her objection. I'd like to ask him some questions.
Is that person present? No.
Okay. Well, that makes it a little bit difficult, so I'd like to know who procured that report. Who procured the two-page letter opinion from Mr. Abuna? Great. Okay, so then I'll direct my questions then to the group. If it's okay, should I just direct it to you, Ms. Nash? The questions about the
Can we,
KLOA?
actually, hold on. Why don't we start with your 20-minute presentation?
No.
No, I think actually the procedure requires that cross-examination occurs first, and then we wrap up. This is a legal proceeding, with all due respect, Chair.
Okay, so, oh, yes, thank you.
Okay. If you are seeking to cross-examine, you need to call one person at a time, have them with a microphone so that they can respond. A group cross-examination wouldn't work here.
I fully understand that, and that's the reason why I've been asking for questions, and I'm really partly pointing out that our traffic experts who did a lot of work are here. They were subject to cross-examination, and the objectors procured a two-page letter from a PE, a traffic expert, and he's not here. So because he's not here, I think that should reflect, or this commission should take that into consideration with respect to the weight of that two-page letter.
Is there
With that, I'm going to call Ms. Nash. I assume that she could answer.
Is there
the
someone
questions.
from the continuance requesters that can speak to that?
You also have a continuance requester who wants to cross it. We may need clarification on what, I don't think any of us understand exactly the procedure now.
Can I
Okay.
just ask Ms. Nash questions about the two-page KLOA report?
Hold on, please.
Thanks.
I need some direction from staff on the best way to manage the cross-examination.
Are any of the presenters from today wanting to cross-examine the applicant? Or we're past that stage, correct?
No.
I didn't hear any requests from the continuance requesters about cross-examination.
So this is Lori Keenan. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Wait,
Are you able to hear me? I would
no,
I would
hold on.
offer.
Excuse me. You're not recognized right now.
Okay.
I did not hear from any of the presenters of the continuance requesters a desire to cross-examine the applicant.
Well, just to be very clear, this gentleman who is asking to do so did tell me at least 90 seconds ago that he did want to, and I asked him to hold off because of the exchange that was happening here. So if that was the window, then that is my fault, and I apologize to everyone.
Wait, when did he say that?
And
Well, he raised his hand. There was a moment when there was a discussion happening, and so
I feel like I
said-
would have needed to hear this earlier.
Correct.
Yes. I'm sorry, you're not recognized right now.
like
so
90
I'm-
seconds ago,
so-
or like
Sorry?
a while ago.
No, during their presentation.
Oh, yeah, no.
So I sadly feel that the opportunity for the continuance requester to cross-examine the applicant has already passed.
Okay, I don't think that that was made clear to us.
Excuse me, you're not
as
recognized. Excuse me, you're not recognized.
I think the chair is correct. The time for cross-examination was, the applicant has already made their presentation. Cross-examinations take place after the presentation has been made. And I'm talking about their presentation at the initial hearing, not what's going on today.
That was their opportunity?
Opportunity was today in response to the presentation that was made previously.
Right. And those presentations have happened. So that's where we're determining is the, forgive me, but it wasn't made totally clear, but that is our process. So right now, the applicant does have an opportunity to cross-examine members here, but it's not going to happen in the other direction. Yes.
I have a request.
Yes.
This is a legal proceeding. The way this proceeding, with all due respect, is supposed to be conducted is we do our presentation. These individuals, as much as I disagree based on our evidence with their opposition, they do actually have a legal right to cross-examine. And here's what I don't want. I don't want to be in a situation with my client in the event that there's legal action taken, that this particular proceeding was a deprivation of any procedural due process.
I understand
We clearly
that.
have a disagreement about the parking. But what I don't want is, I want a fair opportunity for the applicant to be able to put on its case, which you gave us at the last hearing. I do want the objectors, as much as we may disagree with them, to have an opportunity. So if they want to cross-examine, that's why our witnesses are here again. If you don't want to give them that opportunity, that is your call, Chair, but I would highly recommend that they be given the opportunity, and I would request that all of you give them that opportunity.
I'm going to take direction from staff and council.
So is the applicant going to be making a presentation based on what was presented today, or what they anticipated being presented today?
We're putting on a rebuttal case, and we're going to cross-examine the case that they put on. We're going to cross-examine their case, and then after we're done cross-examining, then we will put on our rebuttal and rest.
It is at the commission's discretion to open it up for cross-examination if they so choose of the applicant. I would say that it should have been conducted already. They might not have understood at the time that they made their presentations, but to be quite honest, like in the interest of efficiency, this is how we usually do things. But the commission can make a motion to allow further cross-examination by the presenters of the applicant.
I have a question. Should that happen before the applicant cross-examines witnesses or after? Or does it matter?
I would think that it would happen before.
I served on the Plan Commission. It should have actually gone before, but I think that all of you are keeping track of everything.
All right.
Because it's out of order.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, what I would like to do then is allow the presenters to cross-examine the applicant, and we'll do that now. You'll get your 20 minutes back for your presentation. Sorry?
After they're done cross-examining our witnesses, then we can cross-examine them, and then we close.
Yes.
Thank you.
So with that, can you please raise your hand? If you're one of the continuance requesters, please raise your hand. I know there's one person online as well. Please raise your hand if you plan to cross-examine the applicant tonight.
Could I just clarify? I know I haven't been acknowledged, but if you'd like to hear, I don't intend to cross-examine the applicant, but after the last hearing, I did submit a number of written questions for the agenda packet today that I was interested in hearing from the applicant on.
Those sound like good candidates for cross-examining questions.
Yeah, and Mr. Sorrow presumably has those questions. I don't have anything beyond that. My husband, who resides at my home may have additional questions, and it sounds like other people here do.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with exactly
I asked who
the-
wanted to
yeah.
do it. I saw two hands. Anybody online?
Yes, I would like to ask a question.
Okay, and one person online. So
Yeah,
we,
I don't think I'm going to be pushing back on any of his answers to the questions I raised, but I would appreciate.
that sounds fine.
That's all.
Okay. Would you like to go first? Or one of you? Here, come up here and speak in the mic.
Lenny, you might be the person that has this. Do the questions that were asked, do we have a copy of them to actually read into the record? I think that's what you all are asking us to do.
Okay, what I would like you to do is to state your question and direct it to the commission. And then you can step aside and the applicant can then be at the lectern and answer.
Okay, so Emily, I think you put these questions in.
It's your questions, right? I have them. I'm prepared for that.
So I think.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think, would you like me to read them?
I'll read each one of them, and if I've misstated it, they can say, we're ready to roll on this. We're ready to go.
Sorry, I'm just trying to understand the procedure.
We're ready to go.
So you're going to state the questions that they're asking you?
Yes, so that we can proceed.
Okay.
I have it. It's in the packet.
Okay, here we go.
Ready? Okay. Bullet point 1, please confirm whether any of the new independent living units proposed are affordable housing units. I'm objecting under the rules here under Article 8, Section 1, as well as Article 8, Section 5. Both of those sections state that the questions or cross-examination have to be relevant to this application. Whether or not these units are affordable units, whatever affordable means, or whether they're subject to the Affordable Requirements Ordinance for Evanston is not relevant to this proceeding. And I believe the chair has to make a determination if it's relevant or not relevant before we're required to answer. And for the record, staff has already concluded, or they concurred with our written legal analysis that this particular development is not subject to the Affordable Requirements Ordinance because there's no for sale and there's no leasing, there's no renting.
Okay, thank you for your response.
So objection of relevance is sustained, right?
Well, I'm not
This
making
is
it.
not, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
This isn't a judicial proceeding. I know you've said it's a legal proceeding many times. It's not a judicial proceeding. So if you'd like to object, feel free to object. If you'd like to answer, feel free to answer.
I'm just reading the rules, because if it's relevant, we'll answer. If it's not relevant, then I'll move on to the next question.
I don't think that at this time the chair and the commission is going to make an on-the-spot ruling like that.
Okay, fine. This particular development is not subject to the Affordable Requirements Ordinance. Staff has confirmed that it's not subject to the Affordable Requirements Ordinance, and it's not relevant to any of the standards with respect to the application for a variance or the parking. Next question is bullet point 2. Please confirm whether Three Crowns.
Please speak in the mic.
Yeah, please confirm whether Three Crowns is on the tax rolls or is tax exempt. Same objection. It's not relevant to any of the elements. That's the basis for this variance. Hearing no response, our answer is it's not relevant to any of the standards. Based on Article 8, Section 1, Article 8, Section 5. Notwithstanding the objection, Three Crowns Park is eligible for and has received a legal exemption from real estate taxes from the county. The exemption has been in place since Three Crowns Park was founded. When Three Crowns Park developed McDaniel Court, they voluntarily offered to enter into what's called a pilot agreement, payment in lieu of taxes, with the city of Evanston. It's dated June 21st, 2006. Under the agreement, Three Crowns Park pays the city of Evanston $60,000 per year for a period of 30 years, and that 30-year period expires in 2036. None of that information is relevant to any of the standards, but we're providing the answer over the objection. Bullet point number 3, please describe how many parking has been charged, or please describe how parking has been charged to residents of Three Crowns both prior to and after the 2019 closure of Pioneer Building. We object based on relevance, based on the sections in your rules that I cited previously. Notwithstanding the objection, the residents are not charged for parking with respect to the spaces. Bullet 4, what does Three Crowns charge for the existing units on the property? Again, we assert our objection based on the sections of your rules that I had indicated before. Bullet 5, what will the pricing be for the new units in the Pioneer Building? Again, we object to relevance under the sections of your rules that I previously cited. Bullet 6, preliminary research suggests valet parking would increase the capacity of on-site parking. C, ergo, valet parking services and attendance, FC parking. Within the packet that I downloaded, it looked like there was a link to what I had just said there, the valet parking services and attendance, but I was not able to access that link when I downloaded the document, so I don't know exactly what that is. It goes on to say the question, there is precedent for using valet since that was what was done prior to the 2019 closure of the Pioneer Building. Again, we object on relevance based on the sections that we had indicated. I would just direct the commission to the prior testimony of Ms. Lisa Dye from Three Crowns Park at the prior hearing. I won't repeat it, but she explained in detail why valet parking is not optional here. I think that those were all the questions.
No,
Okay. Am I
There's
missing?
some just-
Is there another one?
there's a next page.
Oh. Which one did I miss?
There's 3 bullet points underneath there. And there's several questions on the following page.
Just give me a second. Do you want to pull them up? Would that be easier?
It's page 25 of the
Oh,
packet.
okay. Oh, I see it. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Linwell. Did you determine how many cars the property would be able to accommodate using existing on-site parking if Three Crowns switched back to a valet parking model? I'm just going to answer all 3 of these. Did you evaluate the approximate cost of switching back to a valet model? With regard to those 2 questions, again, we assert our objection, and we would actually rely on the testimony previously given by Ms. Lisa Dye at the prior hearing. Next one is valet parking attendants and signage have recently been observed at the McDaniel entrance to Three Crowns. See below. That's not a question, but in answer to that, I assume that the question is why was there valet? There actually, that was during a limited, I believe, an expression of interest or an event that was being held for prospective residents to come hear about the opportunity to live at Three Crowns Park. And it was, I believe, limited duration to like a day or just a few hours. It was just 2 hours. And in that particular instance, those vehicles were actually parked right there in the parking lot that is along McDaniel. So it was just basically to just get people who were interested in living in the community to just get them on and off. And so it wasn't a valet service or company that was hired. The cars pulled up and then they were just basically put right there in the parking area right on McDaniel. So there was no valet service that was being piloted or tried or anything like that.
I'm sorry, Lenny,
I'm sorry, there isn't follow-up.
I believe then on page 26, it says most images in the photo gallery on the provider's website, men of valet parking, look like they were taken at 3 Crowns. What is the role of this valet service? How and when is this valet service currently used? Where do valet parking attendants park these cars? I would just reincorporate the answer that I just gave.
Lenny, it's on the screen here if you want to, if that makes it easier.
Thanks. I still can't see anyway, so yeah.
All right.
The next bullet point, did your traffic consultant consider the likelihood of drivers exiting the proposed lot on Colfax and using the reverse L-shaped alley across the street as a shortcut or turning the wrong way onto a one-way street and the potential impacts of this happening?
Good evening. My name is Peter Lemon with Kimley Horn. We prepared the parking and traffic evaluation. With Colfax being one way, we would expect traffic exiting that portion of the lot to continue to head east and then go around the block clockwise using Pioneer and Grant to get back to McDaniel. Driving through a residential alley is not necessarily a convenient shortcut. It might be shorter, but a less convenient movement in particular.
The next question on page 25, or is it 25? Yeah. It appears an appraisal regarding the potential impact on neighboring property values was performed in connection with the planned development this application seeks to amend. And it references Plan Commission minutes from 2005. Was a similar appraisal performed in this case? If so, what were the findings? An appraisal report was not performed in this particular case. However, I would refer the commission to the report prepared by George Kissel. The Pioneer Place already is a residential use. It was a residential use before it became vacant. There was no need to do a valuation impact study regarding an existing use that was just being reactivated. So therefore, there was no an appraisal valuation impact report that was done in this particular instance, and it's our position that one was not needed. But to the extent that the commission is looking for information regarding whether or not the proposed use would have any negative or detrimental impacts on residential, we would refer to Mr. Kissel's report in his opinion. The next one is, what is the construction, traffic, and safety logistics plan for this project? Have you considered the impact of significant construction occurring on multiple sides of property this fall? Like with any other construction project for an institutional use, this particular project is going to comply with all of the requirements that the city imposes regarding construction. You also heard testimony from Mr. Randy Gross at the prior hearing that if this commission were to recommend and the city council were to ultimately approve the proposed on-site parking at the northwest corner, that was going to be utilized for staging for construction so that there would not be construction vehicles or anything on the street. If the parking is not allowed, then the parking will occur where it can legally occur, and the applicant will satisfy any and all requirements regarding construction. But construction will need to take place. The next one is Lincolnwood School expects to have approximately 100 more children attending school this fall due to Kingsley School closure. Have you engaged Lincolnwood School administration or parent-teacher groups regarding the redevelopment plans? We sent out, I believe, the surveys to all the properties within 1,000 feet. I believe one was sent to the school. I don't know if staff has had any communication with the school, but this project and 3 Crowns Park existence has been there. This is no secret. We've gotten no objections. We've gotten no feedback from the school district. Have you engaged parents of children who live more than 1,000 feet from 3 Crowns who will be walking their children past this construction site twice per day to drop off and pick up children at Lincolnwood School? Well, to the extent that engagement constitutes the surveys that we sent out and the letter that staff sent out to the property owners within 1,000 feet,
This is more than 1,000 feet. I just simply don't know if anyone beyond 1,000 feet has engaged in this process. That's a lot of homes and a lot of people. I think those are all the questions. Did I read them all?
Yes, from Ms. Nash, anyway.
Okay. So I think that concludes at least Ms. Nash's cross-examination.
Yes, thank you. Next, sir.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Didn't understand the procedure here, so I appreciate all the flexibility. And then if you wouldn't mind, I guess I can flip through it. Okay. So I guess my questions here would be directed, do I direct them to you?
So yeah, let's do it this way. So state a question, address us, and then step aside, and a representative from the applicant can then address your question.
Okay, thank you. So my question here is, I'd like if Kimley Horn could confirm that they observed that at peak weekday hours, there were 27 unoccupied spaces, even in the existing underground parking lot.
Peter Lemon with Kimley Horn. Yes, those included the open spaces within the underground lot.
Peter, I don't know if it's easier if you want to. That's fine. All right. The next question would be, I want to make sure that that Kimley Horn can confirm that the study that they conducted encompassed the entirety of the observed parking, in meaning that they did not distinguish between parking that may have been related to homeowners or the school or Three Crowns, that they simply observed the number of cars that were on street or underground in the determination of occupied and unoccupied spaces.
That's correct. We don't have an opportunity to know if, for example, a Honda Accord is, a teacher at Lincolnwood School, a staff member at Three Crowns, a resident, someone's cleaner or a contractor. So what we counted was the observed number of spaces that were occupied. You can draw some conclusions on site. Generally, in certain areas are generally visitor parking and so forth, but sometimes you get people parking in places that don't necessarily match the designations. So we don't have a definitive way to say this car is a resident, this car is a staff member, this car is a Lincolnwood teacher, for example.
And so then in follow-up to that, I know that we heard a lot of testimony in the previous hearing that about the additional staff that is required to come or either provide services to Three Crowns, whether that be folks that are helping individually, that are not specifically on staff of Three Crowns itself, but that attend residents to provide additional services such as additional health care or physical care or any number of other cares. I would just like, again, Kimley Horn to confirm that the parking that they were observing would have encompassed any of the additional services that would have been provided. Again, reflecting simply that Kimley Horn's study was focused on the number of cars and not their uses. And so if there were additional people that were attending the site that are beyond the specific staff and employees, that those were already included within Kimley Horn's analysis.
Correct. So if, for example, there was a third-party nurse, I think is what you're getting at, or some other kind of home health care provider that comes in, if they parked on site, they were counted as being on site. If they parked on a surrounding street, they were counted as parking on a surrounding street.
Okay. And then I believe Kimley Horn mentioned at the previous hearing that it evaluated the parking expansion, the projected growth, on the basis of what was observed and not on specifically the number of, perhaps you know what I'm referring to, that you could.
I think what you're referring to, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll touch on this during our rebuttal, our projected growth of parking demand as a result of the proposed project is proportional to the current parking that we observed on site. So the rate, so we didn't use a theoretical rate from some industry publication or a code requirement. We counted how many parking spaces were occupied relative to how many residents or how many units are on site today, and using that empirical parking rate, applied that to the proposed number of units to determine how many additional parking spaces we would expect to see occupied upon completion of the proposed project.
And in doing so, your analysis separated out the types of units. So if there was an independent living unit, you would have utilized a certain factor.
You speak into the mic.
Sorry. If it was an independent living unit as opposed to an assisted or skilled unit, that traffic impact varied depending on the unit type.
Yeah, and ultimately what we did was we looked at the number of residents that are associated with independent living units, since those are the folks that are generating the parking. So our projection was based on a ratio of observed parking to current residents, and then we applied that rate to the number of proposed independent living residents. Using residents as the variable instead of, say, units or square footage or things like that.
And so then there wouldn't be an expectation of additional service provider, kind of the third parties that we discussed, that wouldn't have been captured already by your proposed additional 40 spaces required. Is that correct?
If I'm understanding you right, it's inclusive of their entire on-site parking demand. So again, to kind of go back on a previous statement, we don't know how much of the parking on the streets is tied to 3 Crowns versus residents or other uses in the area. So in some ways, the demand could actually be a little higher if we knew what that number was. We applied the rate per what we observed on site. So when we stated in our memo 40 additional spaces, that's based on what we counted on site. To the extent there was additional people parking on street, if we knew what that number was, we would have applied that in the number. We would have a slightly larger rate. So in a practical sense, to the extent people are parking on the street, that number would actually be a little bit higher than what we're talking about.
But that could also go the other direction, right? It could be also a little bit lower.
Could you speak into the mic, please?
I'm sorry. It could also go the other direction. Is that correct? It could be lower.
It wouldn't be lower because we're including everything on site. So we're assuming everything in our rate. The assumption is that everything is occurring on site. So it would really only go higher if there was actually more parking there than what we're accounting for in our rate. The rate wouldn't actually go down. It could only really go up if there was more parking that we're not including in the rate calculation.
Okay. And then I guess my next question is simply, I want to make sure that I understand how the observed parking in the underground garage was determined. I think I mentioned here, if you'll forgive me, I cut and spliced a little bit of your table. This is table 1 from the Kimley-Horn study, and did so in order to try and preserve the legends at the top and on the side of the columns and the rows, but it appears to me to be showing that at 10 a.m. in the morning, there were only 67 resident spaces that were actually occupied. Again, that matches the amount that were occupied at 5 p.m. You didn't distinguish between what was a specific resident car versus a staff car underneath, correct?
That's correct. Those are just the number of occupied spaces within the garage at that time. It doesn't mean that any of those cars came and went, or that they're the same exact cars. It's just those are the cars at each hour that were counted.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Randy Gross. I'm a Covenant Living and Communities and Services employee. And I just wanted to make a comment about the underground parking garage. So we have right now, the residents have their own parking spaces. So if there's empty spaces during the day, a lot of them go out and volunteer, some of them actually still work and come back. So we really can't give employees their spaces. So we may see some empty spaces there. There are a handful of spaces, underground parking spaces, and they're very desirable, obviously, that have plumbing equipment that were installed, for some reason they couldn't find a space for it, that eliminate the need for a few spaces. And there's a couple other spaces that are extremely narrow that it would be extremely tough for a resident to park their car in there and actually get out of their car. So I think that's important. Obviously, any employee would prefer to park under the garage, and that's why we have 23 employees that actually park under the garage daily, and those cars will come out and have to be parking on the street or somewhere for sure when the new residents come in. And the new residents, when they come in, there's going to be 23 new residents, and probably half of them will have 2 cars. So only 1 car will go in there, and the other car will end up on the parking lot or on the street somewhere. So I just wanted to be clear with that. Thanks.
Just again, hoping that the Kimley-Horn folks confirmed that you have either accounted for the parking configuration, so to speak, that was just mentioned, or if it is simply a blanket, it does not consider the fact that additional plumbing was put in or the services. I just would like clarity.
When we did our counts, we also inventory how many spaces there are, or how many we see that are parkable, that we see that at that time that seemed like, we're not measuring the width of the spaces or anything. But if there is something that's permanent, like let's say there was an HVAC mechanical equipment or something that's been installed and displaced a space, like that's not parkable at some point. If there was something else like that might be temporary, like say materials or something like that, then we note that space is unoccupied. It's not occupied by a car, and conceivably if they moved it, it'd be available. So it would be like an unoccupied space. But if it had permanent equipment, and I don't know exactly how many spaces we might have disqualified or something like that, maybe a handful, but we counted from when we observed, it looked like 103 spaces could be parked. And these are the spaces that he's got listed under resident or ADA. At each hour, that's how many cars that were parked each time we went through the garage.
Yeah, that's exact. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, I have just one last question, which is I'd like the applicant to please confirm for us what the intended height of the lighting is going to be at the new location of the garage. Sorry, of the parking lot.
So the lighting was designed to be at the same height as the existing site lighting in the parking lots, which I believe is, I'm trying to think, pole versus the concrete base that it's on. I believe it's a 2-foot concrete base. And Chair Maya, do you remember, I know that there was a comment made about this by the city.
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up now, and I believe the applicant team had responded that they would keep the height at a certain level, and I'm just trying to pull that information. Light poles will be revised to be 14-foot tall poles on a 24-inch tall concrete base, was how the applicant team responded.
Yes, so that is correct. It's 16 feet.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, then there's one more person online that has questions prepared for cross-examination.
Hi, yeah, this is Lori Keenan. So a couple of questions, including some comments that were made. Was the Climate Action Resilience Plan or Envision Evanston ever considered with this proposal for surface parking lot?
The new comprehensive plan was considered, and the parking lot will comply with all stormwater management regulations.
But as you can see, there are flooding issues currently, so increasing the surface area isn't going to improve those situations, correct? And the Climate Action Resilience Plan was not just about stormwater, it's about green space, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't really understand that question.
Yeah, is there a question?
Yeah, so which parts of the Climate Action Resilience Plan would a new surface parking lot comply with?
The proposed surface parking lot will comply with the applicable regulations, which is the stormwater management regulation. That's what it will comply with.
And the rest of the green space and tree canopy, et cetera? Not taken into consideration?
I don't understand what that question is.
Yeah, I think
the Climate Action Resilience Plan addresses a number of issues, not just stormwater. It addresses green space, tree canopy, living environment. It addresses a number of issues and was put into place for the residents of Evanston. It does not just address stormwater. So I'm asking you, when you were proposing a surface parking lot to go into a residential neighborhood, was the Climate Action Resilience Plan considered?
The answer is that our proposed plan complied with and addressed all the applicable standards. I will defer to staff as to whether or not this particular standard that Ms. Keene is referencing is an applicable standard.
Okay, so I'll quote the Climate Action Resilience Plan.
All right, Ms. Keenan.
Ms.
Keenan, I think we've heard enough on this question. Can you please move on to your next question?
Well, it's preserving urban canopy and green space, investing in green infrastructure, reducing vulnerability to flooding, protecting and expanding natural areas, and revising regulations to reduce parking requirements. That's what CARP calls for. So I don't think talking about stormwater is addressing all those other issues. I'd also like, it was referred that there was somebody from the forestry department who recommended that the parking lot not be put on McDaniel. So I'd like that staff member's name who made that recommendation, please. Also, it was mentioned that Kissel, the residential use and appraisal for previous residential use of this building, that the appraisal shouldn't be changed at all, but the previous use of this building didn't call for a parking lot to be built across the street from these homes. So I think I don't think that's a fair answer to that previous question. I also would like to know the cost of an independent unit in the new building versus the cost of a valet service annually. So I'd like to know those questions too.
Ms. Keenan, I need to interject here, and I need to make sure that and remind you to please have your questions be relatable to the standards that are being evaluated tonight.
Yeah, so we were told that the cost of a valet was prohibitive for being able to have parking underground. I was told by my council member if we could offer solutions, which would be restriping the parking lot. The gentleman tonight said, that residents couldn't get in and out of tight spaces, but presumably a professional valet could. So by restriping the lot, could they not get additional parking spaces in that underground garage? And I'd like to know the cost of an independent living unit in the building, because I think that we'd like to sort of know those numbers when we're sort of saying that we can't afford to have a valet park those cars underground and restripe that lot.
We've already asserted an objection on this. I'm not going to repeat it. We've given an answer. It's not relevant.
I still don't think that people know the cost of these units.
Okay, Ms. Keenan, he's given his answer. What is your next question?
Well, the name of the forestry staff who recommended not having parking on McDaniel?
That was a member of our forestry team, Emily Okalau, and that was due to some of the large and mature trees that are located not on the Three Crowns property, but are located in the parkway, and our parkway trees would have been impacted by the proposed curb cuts that were necessary to facilitate parking areas off of McDaniel.
Okay, and then the lighting height, which was just brought in, it's not relevant because it's not residential. Is that, I mean, we're talking about a 2-foot base and then 14-foot lights. That's 16-foot high lighting in a residential neighborhood. Does that comply with residential zoning?
There are no restrictions on pole heights in a residential zoning district.
Okay, I guess I would ask the commission, you've seen pictures here tonight about the flooding and the available parking, so I would ask you to please consider the neighbors' thoughts and the people that have to live here.
Thank you. I understand there's one more person that has a question for cross-examination.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. This August is the first time in decades that the city of Evanston will be closing schools and adjusting attendance boundaries. The decision to do so was just made in January. And my question is very simple, and I hope the answer is yes. Has Three Crowns conducted any safety studies since January in light of this meaningful change in pedestrian traffic?
No.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes cross-examination of the applicant by the continuance requesters. So going forward now, we're going to do the presentation. You're shaking your head. That was
We
the
should
order.
do the cross-examination of the presenters and then give them a chance to do their final presentation, which is
Thank you.
essentially the rebuttal.
Thank you. Okay. So do you have the particular people that you're,
I'm ready.
okay, go for it.
I'd like to call Ms. Nash.
Thank you. So I just want to remind you, let's, one person speaks at a time at the lectern. Please address your question and your answer to the commission.
Ms. Nash, you helped procure the report that was done by KLOA, which was submitted to the commission, correct?
Yes,
And it's a two-page letter, actually, correct?
correct.
It's not a study or a report, correct?
I think I need more than a one-word answer for that. It would be impossible, even if we wanted to conduct our own full study, to do that and have the results be meaningful in any way since school has ended for the school year. So yeah,
So it's not a study
no, it's not a full study.
and it's not a full report.
I can't tell you what an expert would consider to be a full report, how he would characterize this. I don't know.
Did you ask Mr. Abuna to do a full report that would be analogous or comparative to the report that Kimley Horn did?
We asked him to take a look at the findings that KLOA made, which we thought presented some pretty obvious conclusions that support our opposition here, and asked him to make his own opinion on that, and if he'd be willing to put in some form of response.
But you didn't ask him to do a report that would be analogous to the report that Kimley Horn did, a separate report?
We did not, nor could we have.
With respect to the second page of the two-page letter from Mr. Abuna, he states in the third bullet point,
Quote, "The additional parking resulting from the proposed expansion can be easily accommodated by the existing surplus parking on-site on Sunday and on a weekday by a combination of the existing surplus parking on-site and the available on-street parking." Do you see that bullet point?
Yes.
Do you know how many of the 35 spaces were on-site based on Mr. Abuna's statement?
I can't answer questions about what he put in here. What I will say is that that statement is actually consistent with what KLOA said at the conclusion of the April 20th meeting, that if we were willing to rely on street parking to absorb part of this demand, that was entirely within the realm of possibility and would get them where they need. I doubt they will acknowledge that up here today, but when we walked out of the meeting and some of these folks were parked on our street.
Yeah, just to clarify, Kimley Horn is.
Kimley Horn, I'm sorry. When the results of Kimley Horn, that after that meeting on April 20th, when we left, several of the people standing behind me were parked on our street, which was nearly empty. And when we expressed our frustration that there would be an empty parking lot with 18-foot tall lights that may or may not even be tapped off, shining into the lights of the windows of assisted living residents and our families across the street, which would sit empty overnight and maybe relatively empty even during the day, we were told, yes, I would agree that if you relied on street parking to absorb part of this additional demand, it would be fine. It's just a question of whether that's something we're willing to do.
So I can save everybody a lot of time. I made an effort to actually write my questions down, and I'm asking very direct questions. And if it can't be answered, then it can't be answered. I'm not trying to trick anybody. So all my question was, do you know how many, do you know whether or not Mr. Abuna knows how many of the 35 sites or 35 spaces are on site? That was my question. It's simple. If she doesn't know, she doesn't know. Just, that's fine.
If it's in Kimley Horn's report, he's taking Kimley Horn at face value.
Do you know whether or not Mr. Abuna considered what's called effective capacity ratio when he prepared his 2-page letter for you?
I don't know, although
Do you know what? Do you personally know what effective capacity ratio means?
I don't, but if you explain it to me, maybe I'll know. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Do you know whether or not Mr. Abuna evaluated the Kimley Horn's opinion of the projected parking demand, which was based in part on a buffer or cushion? Do you know if Mr. Abuna did that or not? Yes or no?
I know that the letter says that he was assuming 100% capacity since these are assigned spaces in a residential garage.
Ms. Nash, my question was specifically, do you know whether or not Mr. Abuna evaluated the Kimley Horn opinion of the projected parking demand, which was based in part on a buffer or cushion?
I know he evaluated the entire report.
Did you ask Mr. Abuna whether or not for plans like, for projects like this, where the development is to occur immediately adjacent to residential uses, that it is his professional opinion that the parking plan should be designed as follows? First, utilize all street parking so that no on-site parking would occur. Put another way, shift the parking burden to the street to take up street parking that otherwise would be used by the residential property owners and their guests. Did you ask him that question?
I didn't ask him any questions. I trusted that.
That's fair. You didn't ask him. They want to go home. We can move faster. That's all I'm trying to do. So bullet point 4 says, quote, "Parking conditions should be monitored after completion and stabilization of the proposed expansion to confirm the projected parking demand as estimated in the parking study." You see that bullet point? Right? Is that his opinion?
I think it speaks for itself.
Who's supposed to monitor the parking?
I don't know.
And then
I would
after
presume the
project-
applicant,
after
if they really believe they need more parking.
After the project is complete, if the parking demand is equal to or exceeds the projections in the Kimley Horn report, then is the applicant required to take any action to address the increased demand for parking? Do you know?
I don't know. I think that's a question for the city and the commission and the council.
Do you know, is anyone required to take any action to address the parking demand if the demand exceeds the projections or equals the projections that are in the Kimley-Horn report after this project is done?
Can you repeat the question?
That's okay, I'll move on. Do you know whether or not Mr. Abuna agrees that the cars that comprise the excess demand that he references there will have to park on Colfax, Pioneer, Grant, and/or McDaniel or other nearby streets?
I can't speak for him.
Well, where would the cars be parked if they can't be parked on site?
I can't answer your question.
Can you ask just from your common knowledge, if the cars that utilize Three Crowns Park are not able to park on site, where would they park?
On the adjacent streets. In fact, many of these proposed
Colfax,
parking spaces,
Pioneer, and McDaniel.
or the block immediately to the west or to the east.
Fair.
And many of those spaces that are in the proposed lot are much farther from the entrance to Three Crowns than a lot of the street spaces. So I don't know if there are going to be some kind of requirement that, their visitors and staff have to park in the lot. I suspect many will continue to park on the street, whether the lot's there or not, if it's closer to the entrance. And we don't mind.
Thank you. Bullet 5 says, the location of any additional parking spaces on site, should it be needed in the future, should be further investigated to minimize the impact on the neighborhood, including utilization of the existing access drives on McDaniel Avenue, which is a two-way street. After the project is complete, do you know whether or not Mr. Abuna concluded that if there's increased parking demand resulting from the project, the increase will have an impact on the neighborhood? Do you agree with his statement?
His statement is his statement. I don't know.
Do you agree with it?
That there would be an impact on the neighborhood? If Kimley Horn is wrong, will there be an impact on the neighborhood?
After the project is complete, if there is increased parking demand resulting from this project, the increase will have an impact on the neighborhood, according to Mr. Abuna, correct?
Yeah, possibly.
Thank you. Will the impact of the neighborhood be negative or positive?
It depends on if their projections are above or below what actually happens.
Let's just take the words that Mr. Abuna used in the report that you procured. He used the word impact on the neighborhood. You just agreed that if there's increased parking demand resulting from the project, the increase will have an impact on the neighborhood. He used the word impact, I didn't. So my follow-up question is, will the impact, the word that he used, for the neighborhood or on the neighborhood, will that impact be negative or positive? Did he tell you?
It depends on what the usage actually is after the dust settles. What he said is what many neighbors have said all along, which is, why don't we wait and see?
No, that last one talks about increased parking after the project. He said that it would have an impact on the neighborhood. The report you procured.
It doesn't say positive or negative, and I'm not going to answer for him.
Thank you. In your portion of what you submitted regarding the photographs of it looks like it's page 21. Page 21, there are some photographs. And one of the labels or captions says, quote,
View facing Three Crowns Park in front of 2405 Colfax Street, water in foreground on north side of street and in background on south side of street. I think if you scroll up a little bit. Oh, right there, that top part. That's what you wrote, right? Yes?
Yes.
And are those photographs that you took?
That my son took.
Good. Do you know where that water came from? I mean, other than it rained.
Rain.
But do you know where that water ran off from?
Other than it was after rainfall, I don't know.
Thanks. Now, if you could.
It wasn't from me putting it there. Let's just be clear about that.
And then, looks like it's on page 23. No, I'm sorry, could you go up? It's probably the next one. I think it's PDF page 23. Yes, that's the one. So did you or your son take those photographs?
I took them.
Okay. So basically, in these photographs, you're showing Colfax, right?
Correct.
So the objector group actually wants more cars to be parked on Colfax. Is that correct?
The objector group doesn't mind a few additional cars parking on Colfax, and we do not want a parking lot.
So you want them on Colfax or McDaniel or Pioneer or wherever?
We are happy to have a few more cars, especially since it's not 40, it's not 35, it's not even 13. It looks like if Mr. Abuna's analysis of their report is correct, it's maybe up to 8 once the reduction from 26 to 23 units occurs.
And he didn't base it on the projections that Kimley Horn provided, correct?
I don't know what he based it on.
Okay. So it could be more, correct?
I don't know.
That's it. I just have one question for Ms. Armstead. Armistead. Yeah. I did. Yeah. Ms. Armistead, thank you for your.
You speak into the mic, please.
I'm sorry. Ms. Armistead, thank you for your testimony and presentation. Just have a follow-up question for you with regard to pedestrian safety. Do you know, will more cars parked on Colfax, Pioneer, Grant, and/or McDaniel create more potential tensions between pedestrians and cars?
My perspective, and I think parents universally agree, is that cars parked on the street are actually safer. They slow down the cars that are driving down the one-way street, and they make it safer for our children.
And why do you believe that?
I believe I just stated they slow down the car traffic, and they make our one-way street, I live on Colfax, Pioneer, slower and safer for our kids.
And do you think that that's safer than actually having parking on site that's controlled, that has an access point and an exit point?
I am not a safety expert, and I would assume the applicant could answer these questions themselves.
That's it. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now that concludes cross-examination from both parties. We now have 20 minutes for your final rebuttal and presentation.
Yes. So we're going to start with Peter Lemon, and then we're going to go to Brooke Burke, and then to Randy Gross, and then to myself. And they're going to be nice nugget size points. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening again. I'll do a formal introduction. My name is Peter Lemon with Kimley Horn, and I led the evaluation of the traffic and parking study that's in your packet. Just as a side note, I'm also an Evanston resident. I've lived here for 24 years and in the 6th Ward for 19 years. So I'm familiar with the area beyond our work on the project. And I think some of the things I was planning on touching on, we touched on in the cross-examination. So I'll try not to repeat some of those items, but just to kind of clarify some of the highlights from our study that have been brought up. So we completed our parking counts on Sunday, October 12th, and Wednesday, October 15th of 2025. So typical time of year, school was in session and so forth. As I mentioned earlier, our counts were from 10 to 5 that were shown in the charts or tables that were presented. And we counted the number of occupied spaces both on street and on the site hourly. So in the streets, it was the adjacent streets, the adjacent blocks of Colfax, Pioneer, Grant, and McDaniel. And as was talked about earlier, the peak from those, the Sunday, the weekend day, and the typical weekday occurred on Wednesday, the 15th at 3 p.m., where we had 120 of 147 on-site parking spaces occupied, so that's about 82% of the spaces occupied. Most of those were primarily in the parking garage itself. The front lot on McDaniel was, 1 or 2 open spots, and I don't remember exactly how many, and the Pioneer lot was also similarly occupied with 1 or 2 open spots. And then also there's some vehicles that park in the dock area as well. That kind of peak time was at 3 o'clock. You have a pretty similar level of parking utilization from about 11 or 12 o'clock until about 4 o'clock, and then it starts to diminish. I mentioned the front and back are generally full. The open spaces are primarily in the garage itself. Those spaces are generally assigned, but they're available as residents come and go as they do different things, lunch, errands, appointments, what have you. But at that same time, the on-street spaces on the surrounding 4 blocks or the 4 street segments, there were 34 occupied spaces out of the 94, 36% occupancy. The west side of Pioneer, though, is effectively not very parkable. There are 17 spaces there, but given the width of Pioneer, and we only counted 1 car that was parked on the west side, it's pretty tight when you try to drive through that segment. So generally, people tend not to park on the west side of the street. Also, the west side of McDaniel, although there are some cars parked there, there are school day parking restrictions. I believe it's 8 to 4. So then in terms of our process, what we do is we looked at the peak day, so the typical weekday, and look at that peak time and make a projection as to how many additional spaces the 23, in our report we talked about 26 since then, since November, the proposal's been down to 23 units. We make a projection on how many additional spaces we expect there would be demand for. And as I mentioned earlier, it's based on the empirical rate that we observed of occupied spaces for the number of residents that are there, and then apply that same ratio to the additional residents. And based on the 23 units, we would expect a growth of 35 additional spaces. So there's 2 different scenarios here. The proposed plan has a net addition of 28 spaces on the site. So we would have a projected demand of 35 additional spaces. So we would sort of eat into some of the existing surplus that we observed. And we would end up with a peak occupancy of 89%. And that's inclusive of the garage parking spaces, all the spaces that would be on the site with this plan. That puts us with, that results in an 11% cushion. And what, as a parking planner, we would call effective capacity. So, for example, if you have a need to park 100 vehicles, most uses you don't build then 100 parking spaces. You have some sort of cushion. It might depend on the types of use it is. So if it's, say, an office building, you don't have as much turnover through the day. Employees come, they show up in the morning, they leave in the afternoon. They're not coming and going a whole lot. You don't need as big of a cushion. If you have a retail use, you have more cushion because people are coming and going and circulating and looking for spaces. If you have hospital or medical patients and visitors, you're concerned about making sure people can conveniently find a place to park, and you're not looking for that one last available space. You also sometimes temporarily lose spaces. Someone parks too close to the line. We've all been in lots where somebody parks too close, and so it renders the space next to it useless until that person leaves. You might have, for a short time in the winter, maybe snow storage uses a space, things like that. So you usually try to plan in a little bit of a cushion. 10% is a good rule of thumb for that. So with this proposed plan, we would end up with an 11% cushion in terms of its utilization. An alternative would be, and that has been talked about and presented by neighbors, is, okay, don't build the parking lot or the portion of the proposal in the northwest portion of the lot. It's 30 spaces in that lot. If you were to remove that portion, you would net out at a loss of 26 spaces from what is being proposed, because we lose some spaces in that McDaniel lot to make the connection to that proposed lot. So you would get those back. So you wouldn't lose all 30, you'd lose about 26 spaces. And then if you look at our additional 35 space growth and demand, we would end up at 104%. So we'd be over occupied, which means we would have at least 6 spaces. If all other spaces on the site were occupied, you'd have at least 6 other spaces spill out into the adjacent streets. From a practical standpoint, you don't ever see all of those spaces occupied, for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. Also, that some of the spaces would be dedicated towards residents. And so if you were, say, for example, a visitor coming, you wouldn't have access to the residential spaces in the garage and so forth. So if you applied a 10% cushion to the resulting spaces, if you didn't build that lot, you would have about an additional 21 spaces that would spill out somewhere. And so I'll try to wrap up that point. I've been doing this for about 30 years in practice. I can't recall a project where the direction or preference was to not handle, or not for an applicant to handle their parking on site and to instead put it into a surrounding neighborhood. Typically, it's the other way around. I've worked on many projects where questioning, do we have enough spaces? We're worried about people parking in the neighborhood, people, not having enough space to park on site. So I think that's kind of what we're facing, is that alternative. There were 2 other things that were pointed out in earlier comments that I just wanted to touch on as well. One was about concern about pedestrian safety. I totally get it. I mean, my kids walked to Willard when they went to school. You're concerned about traffic and parking and so forth. In my opinion, having parking on site means you're coming onto the site, circulating to look for your parking, rather than driving around the neighborhood looking for available spaces as close as possible. It creates more conflict points where cars and pedestrians might interact. There was also an earlier statement about why not use Lincolnwood as shared parking. Shared parking is a great concept if you have complementary uses. But as shown in our accounts, we have a pretty consistent level of parking on site from 11 to 4 o'clock. Last I checked, school lets out a little after 3 o'clock. I assume it's the same at Lincolnwood as it was from my experience at Willard. That's not exactly a complementary use when we have our peak demands when school's in session. So that's not really a great alternative normally. I would say that would be great. Or if there was a church that was across the street, that would be great, a great alternative. Lincolnwood, though, isn't really a great alternative as a kind of a shared parking use for the demands that we see at 3 Crowns. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. We're coming up on about 11 minutes left.
Good evening. Once again, my name is Brooke Ramsey Burke, and I work as the Assistant Director for Facilities Management and Capital Project Manager at 3 Crowns Park. As an operator of this community for 11 years and knowing our frontline staff, I have a good pulse on who our staff is and how they travel to and from work. I would like to address the suggestion made by some of the neighbors that 3 Crowns Park staff use public transportation to get to work and shed some light on the multiple difficulties of this. First, there are a few staff members that do successfully use public transportation, even though it takes significant time. These very few individuals live in areas near bus or CTAL stops and do not have childcare or other family responsibilities that prohibit them from taking public transportation directly to and from work. We recently hired an administrative staff member who lives in Rogers Park and takes 2 buses to get to work. This takes her approximately 75 minutes each way. Additionally, as a business that's open 24/7, many of these team members who work on weekends are forced to take Uber or Lyft to work on weekends, as bus and train service is limited, and this is financially draining. Yes, it is a fact that the Central Street Metro stop is a viable option for public transportation to Three Crowns Park. We are all aware that the train line goes south towards downtown Chicago and north towards Kenosha with intermittent stops in between. However, there are currently no staff members that live anywhere near a Metro stop on the Union Pacific North Line. The majority of staff members live in areas where public transportation simply is not an option to travel to and from work, while also having adequate time to fulfill childcare and family responsibilities before and after shifts. These areas include Skokie, Streamwood, Bartlett, Chicago, Niles, Morton Grove, Des Plaines, and Mundelein, to name a few. I would like to note that we do encourage carpooling, if at all possible. However, there are very few groups of team members, and those that are related to each other, that live close enough to each other to carpool. Please allow this additional parking on the Three Crowns Park grounds to allow our staff to travel to and from work and to provide continuity of care to our vulnerable residents. Finally, I would like to reiterate my comments from last month's Land Use Commission hearing regarding the roles of the individuals that come to the community each day that are not Three Crowns Park direct employees. These individual roles are personal companions and caregivers, therapy providers, lab technicians, and visiting medical professionals, families and friends of current residents, potential residents taking tours of the community, professional vendors such as plumbers, HVAC technicians, construction workers, landscapers, fire protection technicians, and many more. These people and visitors are a vital part of Three Crowns Park and are literally who make it succeed and operate successfully. Thank you for your time.
Okay, again, my name is Randy Gross. I'm with Covenant Living Communities and Services. I'm out of the central office out of in Skokie, Illinois, at 5700 Old Orchard Road. I'll be relatively brief. When Three Crowns was a standalone community, and in 2019 with COVID, it ended up Covenant Living Communities and Services kind of acquired the community to help it be financially stable. So it's really important that we're able to build additional residential units. The original plan was to build 90 units and tear down the entire park and build within the setbacks and build a lot of massive underground parking. Sure, that would have been great for the community, but it wouldn't have been great for Three Crowns Park and all the trees we would have had to lose through that. So we went to Plan B, and that was to renovate Pioneer. Renovating the Pioneer building is much more expensive than building a new building, but we think it's a beautiful building, and we're really excited about it. But we do need parking for the building. We do need people. We do need to provide a place for people to park. Seniors, we don't expect them to park several blocks away, and many of the residents we have, they have family members and they have spouses, especially if they're in assisted living and skilled nursing, that need to park close. They can't park 2-3 blocks away, or they're not going to come and visit their loved ones, which is really critical to our community to have their loved ones visit them. We are passionate about the environment. It's going to be a green glow building. We're going to have solar panels. We're going to do wells with geothermal wells and geothermal heat and all electric, and we are very environmentally conscious as far as from an insulation standpoint and everything else. we felt we've gone through this project very methodically and very planful, and we've engaged in all the stakeholders within the city, with all the departments, with the forestry department, with the engineering department, with the planning department. And this is a tough decision for you to make, and it will be a tough decision for the city council to make of what to do in this situation. And I understand everything the neighbors are saying about adding a parking lot and not wanting us to add a parking lot. But the reality is, at the end of the day, we have 23 parking spaces that our employees are going to have to be parking on the street. We have then the new 23 residents will park underground, and some of their spouses, or if they have 2 cars, will be parking on the street. So originally, we were going for 40 spaces, a 40-space parking lot. We met with engineering and planning. We reduced that to 28, to just 28. But we are trying to be a good neighbor. And what I don't want this to happen is a year to come back to here where all the neighbors are very upset because we're taking up all of their parking spaces. This is a reality. These cars are coming out on the street. There's no other place for them to go. Even if we valet, we'll be valeting to the street. And I think it's going to be a very big impact. The nights and the weekends are not a problem. I think that's very important to understand. They're very clear on the nights and weekends. The problem is Monday through Friday during regular business hours. It's interesting, one of the neighbors said that all the neighbors was representing all the neighbors and said, hey, let's just wait and see. Let's not do a plan. Let's not add parking and wait to see. Well, I like to be very planful, and that's why we've engaged in adding parking. As you understand, this is more expensive for us to add the parking spaces and add a parking lot. It's more convenient for our employees, of course. And we want to be a good employer, and we want to attract good employees that can come and have a place to park and not worry about a snow day and not worry about street cleaning day. And we'd like to provide them a place to park. So with that, I just would hope you would support us adding additional parking on the surface somewhere to alleviate the stress to the neighbors, because I know it will be a problem, and I don't want to come back here. I don't want to address this at a later time. I'd rather address this now, before construction, so the construction vehicles will also have a place to park and not start parking on the streets. Thank you.
I got 60 seconds. I just want to thank the commission for listening to all this information, to reviewing the very dense packet. I want to thank the objectors. Again, although we disagree, that doesn't mean that we disrespect. I too actually live in Evanston. I've lived here, I think, about the same amount of time as Mr. Lemon, and his daughter and my son were born on the same day, except a leap year issue. This is a very difficult call. I've sat on the Land Use Commission. I've handled a lot of these cases, and I have to absolutely concur with Peter Lemon. I've never seen a situation or a project where adjacent property owners want parking on their street. I've just never seen it. I see developers actually trying to basically shift that burden to the street. I believe that the evidence that you've heard, the evidence that we've presented, the studies that have been done, the time that has been spent, the engagement that has occurred, this applicant, I'm proud to represent this applicant. They went above and beyond with multiple meetings, sending out surveys, and doing the level best that they could, and working with staff. You have a difficult decision, but I do think that at the end of the day, when you deliberate amongst yourselves, and you have to look at the facts and make findings of fact, I respectfully hope that you conclude that this proposed on-site parking meets those standards, because we believe that it does, and we respectfully request your recommendation to be sent off to the City Council for a final vote. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the presentation and final comments by the applicant. Now we have an opportunity for questions by the commission. Commissioners to the applicant.
Just clarify, do we, or they've concluded their summation? I have a number of questions for staff.
That's
But
fine.
is it appropriate
That's
to
fine.
be asking the applicant additional questions at this point?
Yes, you can ask questions, and then once you're done with that, you can close the public hearing portion and enter deliberations.
Okay, then I do have a couple of questions. The first is, in looking at the inset parking along Pioneer, are there Any issues with respect to utilities? In the street lighting, I know the street trees were identified as potential issue for the, on Pioneer.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Linwell, can you restate that again?
The question is, are there any issues with respect to utilities along Pioneer that would impact the construction of the proposed inset parking? Okay.
No, the answer is no.
All right, and then I was out driving the site today, and I noticed that the fire hydrant along Colfax looks like it's pretty close to the proposed exit of the parking lot. Is that going to need to be relocated, or what are the issues involved in that?
Commissioner Lee, can we just take a look at the plan and, yeah.
Yeah,
It won't need to be.
okay, it looked like it was almost opposite the alley entrance. And then finally, when do shift changes happen? What's the timing on that?
The majority of shift changes happen at 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. And then we also have 12-hour shifts, so 7 p.m., 7 a.m.
7 p.m.
7 to 3, 3 to 11 p.m., 11 to 7 a.m., and then 7 to 7.
Okay, what, do you know offhand kind of what percentage are the 7 to 3, or how many employees we're talking?
7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So we have roughly 60 people that are working at peak hours.
Okay.
Yeah. Direct employees, not including visitors.
Right. Thank you.
Before we go to Commissioner Berlin, I just have a simple question. What is the estimated square footage of green space that is being lost by the proposed parking in the northwest corner?
Architect can answer that.
You can work on that and get back to me. Commissioner Berlin?
It's approximately 11,800 square feet.
11,800?
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Berlin?
Well, that begs the question, how much green space remains if you go through with this plan? Which was not my actual question, but. How much green space remains if you go through with this plan? You said this plan would convert 11,000.
According to their numbers, they said it's a 4% decrease in the green space.
Okay,
You
so,
wanna get the-
yeah, no, I can, that's fine. I can handle a percentage. I have a question for the parking planner. I apologize, you've introduced yourself like 5 times, so I'm sorry I'm calling you the parking planner. You just said something that caught my ear on this question of what creates a safer environment for school-age children walking to school. You had commented essentially that a parking lot does that, right? Sort of the way it directs traffic. And I was just, not to put words in your mouth, but I was just curious, like, are you saying that, I think it is a hypothesis from the residents, right, as opposed to a fact, expert opinion. And so I was just curious to know, is this also your hypothesis, or I don't know what is studied as part of being a parking planner. So I was just curious.
It's not like hard data. So I know the resident mentioned about her thought about like on-street parking would help slow traffic, and I don't disagree with that. I think on-street parking does help slow traffic. It's kind of like a form of traffic calming. We've all driven down streets when like nobody's parked, and you're like, oh, traffic is generally going faster. You're generally more driving slowly. So the speeds would be, one consideration. In my opinion, though, also like people driving around looking for available parking spaces, especially turning at intersections where they're crossing crosswalks where people are actually crossing. So if you're walking to school on the sidewalk, that's one thing. Hopefully people are driving slow in our neighborhoods. If they're driving faster, they're still like parallel with you on the sidewalk. But if you're crossing an intersection and you've got people driving around looking for on-street parking spaces, that's where I kind of view more conflict. So I don't have I'm not comparing numbers. We haven't looked at what's the like pedestrian crash history in the
That's what I was
neighborhood.
wondering,
Yeah,
like
we
where
don't-
you were like best practice is a 10% buffer for effective
Yeah.
parking.
So I would call
This
it
is
like
not
a best
that.
practice kind of thing.
You would not say it's best practice.
Like it's something that I would try to avoid, is having a bunch of extra circulation in your neighborhood when you've got kids walking to school. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Miranchov.
I have one question to the parking study. I believe from both sides we received completely different evaluation of the need for parking. Will you please give me your input why you have such a difference with KLOA in evaluating the need for additional parking?
Okay, so my review of KLOA's letter is that they took their data from our counts, and they've said it really hasn't been that different. They've concluded that on the weekday during the peak, if there was no parking, additional parking constructed as part of this project, that it would be served by a mix of on-site surplus and people spilling out into the neighborhood. One of their conclusions was that they made an assumption that 100% of the spaces on the site would be utilized. I would disagree that not all spaces are going to be completely utilized. There's going to be some spaces as people come and go. Residential spaces would be restricted to residents. So if they exited to go run an errand or go to an appointment or something like that, a visitor isn't going to then take their space in the garage. It's going to be open. And so my contention is that you wouldn't fill it all up to the brim like a glass of water. You always have some spaces that are never going to be fully occupied. So one of the other things is that their contention is that, hey, park on the street and let's see what happens later. And if there's a problem, then we have to figure out how to handle parking, I guess. But they don't make a recommendation on how to do so. We've presented, the plan that has been presented, I think, provides enough parking to handle their proposed or additional growth. It eats into some of the surplus that they have today, that's true, and that some additional parking, if they don't build it, is going to then spill over onto the street. My perception and what I understand of the neighborhood concerns is they would rather the parking lot not be built and have the parking demand met in the neighborhood. That's the difference. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Other commissioners? I guess I have a final question or two. I'd like to hear just one more time from one of the employees of Three Crowns. What would it mean for you in your operations and your management of employees if this extra parking does not get built?
If the extra parking does not get built, of course, we know the cars will park on the street. The streets, as we know, there is the fire hydrant, there is street cleaning on one side of the street or the other, there is snow clearing that has to be done. This interrupts the care of our residents, okay? And it makes it more difficult for our staff to arrive on time. It makes it more difficult for them to want to work at Three Crowns Park if they know every day they're going to have to circle the block 4 or 5 times. We don't want our residents parking on the street. We don't want them to have to go through those challenges. So we want all of them to park in the underground garage. Us staff want to park outside on surface. So it provides disruption of care to our residents is the real impact. And it causes difficulties of our residents' loved ones to visit them. I mean, we as staff, all of us do way more than what our job title says. We all sit with residents at bedside. If their daughter lives in California and they are dying, we sit with them. If their daughter comes in and they cannot find a place to park, which we hear all the time, there's no parking, there's nowhere to park, they're not going to see their mother in her final days. So that's the impact of it. One thing I wanted to say also is that our shifts are from 7 to 3, 3 to 11, but we have an hour of shift change. So during shift change times, there's even more cars that are there. But it affects us operationally. It really, really does. I mean, right now, even in the back where the staff can park, we have at least between 5 to 10 cars that double park back there every single day. Because they don't want to go park on the street because they have to walk further, right? Or it's cold, or it's pouring rain, like it was today when I came in. It's just more challenging. If you know you're going to have a place to park when you come in, it's a better place to work, and you provide better care for your residents. You don't leave a resident during care to go move your car because of street cleaning or snow clearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Oh, yeah, Commissioner Berlin.
My question is actually for city staff. So is this appropriate, or are we holding?
Let's wait then.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Magnum.
I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but this question is for you. So, do you have 120 residents?
We have 120 residents that currently live in independent living. Our total resident count is about 190. Okay, when we have our new apartments built in Pioneer, we'll have closer to 215 to 230 residents total.
How many of the current residents do not have vehicles?
So the residents that live in licensed care, which we are referred to as assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing care, do not drive. They don't have vehicles. The vehicles belong to the residents that live in the 91 existing residential living apartments. I would say there's probably 20 right now that don't have cars, which is why 20 of us are able to park in the garage, because they don't have cars. If they move to a different level of care, they move on, they move up, another resident moves in, takes that garage spot, and one of us gets booted out. That's how it works. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. In that case, I'm going to close the record for all testimony that's been provided to us, and we're going to move into commission deliberation. So we can ask. Now would be a good time to ask questions of staff, and generally hear your thoughts.
I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking, but why stop now? And I apologize if I'm putting you guys on the spot, Jeremiah and Sam, and maybe you're not the right people to ask. I think one thing I am a little perplexed by, I'm going to be honest, is this idea of CARP. And I know there was some confusion with what the resident was asking about it, but what I am thinking about with it is we have sort of decided as a town that we are trying to protect green space. And to be clear, I don't actually think the parking lot is an unreasonable request. I'm just trying to think this through from many angles. It does feel to me, I think this is a very hard case, and this feels to me like a situation where both sides, depending on how you frame it, are able to make really good argument for it or against it. And so when I think about CARP, I'm a little perplexed that as a city we have adopted this plan that is going to prioritize green space and is going to prioritize transitional zones. And we've also said, I don't think it's relevant to compare this to how housing is being handled. I actually don't think that's an appropriate example. This is something different than traditional owned or rented housing, but because it's older adults. But you know what I'm getting at? Like, this feels like it is going against something that we have said we prioritize. And that is the one, I'm having some cognitive dissonance there.
So CARP is a very broad document. I mean, it has a lot of different recommendations on a lot of different aspects of sustainable design and green development and preservation of green space. It complies with certain aspects of CARP and maybe does not directly comply with others. Both can be true. For example, it is removing green space. It is paving over much of that, which with permeable pavers, which is a more sustainable option. They are installing solar panels, which is another aspect of CARP, is renewable energy production. They're utilizing geothermal for their heating and cooling, another aspect of CARP. So I understand your conflict, but it complies with certain aspects of CARP where it may also not comply with others, I guess is how I would answer that.
So can I say back to you what I'm hearing? That adopting CARP does not mean that we never again consider things that take away green space or otherwise lead to development. It's more that as we think about development, we're thinking about it in this framework. There are going to be instances where it makes sense to prioritize green space. There's going to be instances where it makes sense to prioritize development, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Add one other thing too, and how we also use CARP is CARP also includes a lot of policy and regulation changes that are directed directly towards the city in order to help guide us in the future for other policy changes that we need to make. In this instance, it ties directly to the zoning code, and there's certain goals and strategies in there that direct us to make certain regulatory changes to the zoning code. And we certainly will be looking at that and incorporating those as we proceed with the code update. But this is an instance where some of those change goals and strategies just haven't been incorporated into the code yet. And so the code is as the code stands today.
Thank you.
Commissioner Linwall.
Just to follow up on the Commissioner Berlin's question, the tree preservation ordinance is applicable to this project, is it not? Which is kind of why there are so many additional trees required?
Yes, this is subject to the tree preservation ordinance.
Okay. I have a number just of clarification. Does the Land Use Commission recommendation need to address the proposed new four-season room on the west side of McDaniel building, the new elevator and entrance canopy for the Pioneer building, and demolition of the walkway bridge? Or is that just, do we need to address that in our recommendation?
Well, it depends what specifically you're talking about. I mean, one of the conditions of approval in the special use ordinances is that the floor area ratio is limited to a certain amount. They've already exceeded that. They're adding additional floor area through that's four-season room and the canopy. So in one sense, yes, you would need to, through an amendment to the special use ordinance and elimination of that condition.
But if we eliminate the conditions that related to the floor area ratio, then are those elements
Those
permitted?
I would consider them probably substantially compliant with the original PD ordinance that governs the site, just in isolation, those elements, yeah.
Yeah, so we wouldn't necessarily need to include mention of those aspects of the project in our recommendation?
Right, you wouldn't, no. I mean, any modification to the special use and the PD would be to approve the modified development plans, which do include that, unless you parse out some of the different approvals, that could change things.
Okay, the second question is, I want to clarify on page 63, when you're talking about the condition B with respect to ordinance 3305, which I think is the plan development ordinance, there was a recommendation, or it stated that we would need to amend or add a condition of approval to allow an additional second driveway on the west side of the project, but if I'm looking at the drawing, there's nothing, there are no additional entrances or exits on McDaniel. Is this does this pertain to the exit drive on Colfax, or is that just something that?
So with staff's interpretation, the condition said the site development plan shall indicate, this is back from the 2005-2008 PD, the site development plan shall indicate a single driveway entrance and single driveway exit to the west side of the facility, each onto McDaniel Avenue. So they're now expanding the parking lot. That's what their proposal does. They're expanding the parking lot on the west side of the facility, and they're adding another exit onto Colfax.
Okay,
so it would contain now a double exit, one on Colfax, one on McDaniel. That was our interpretation of why that condition needed to be modified.
Okay, so basically it would need to be modified to allow an additional exit on Colfax. Okay, the next question I have is with respect to the proposed inset parking and the access drive modification along Pioneer Road. That's in public right-of-way, so does our recommendation need to, is that just something that we can either support or reject? It's not really part of the plan development approval, is it? How does that relate to what we need to address?
Well, it's shown on the PD plans as an improvement that they're proposing. We do have a condition of approval if the Land Use Commission is to recommend approval that any such parking within the Pioneer Road right-of-way need approval through the Director of the Public Works, which would be required for any new curb cut. So that is addressed in that way.
Right, so, but it's not, it's almost a separate approval. I'm trying to figure out what we need to address when we make our recommendation is what I'm trying to get at.
I mean, I would think that it's shown on the set of plans that they're proposing, and it's an improvement that they're proposing. If it's something the Land Use Commission doesn't support, then they could say a condition of approval to remove that, or they could leave the staff recommended condition to have it subject to the director's approval. Or you could support it, correct.
Okay, and then, let's see, the final one is, and typically, is there a reason why we don't have a staff recommendation to do a construction management plan as a condition? I was just wondering if we need to add a condition requiring a construction management plan, as is typical, or if that's just a typical city requirement.
Yeah, that could be something that the Land Use Commission adds, absolutely.
Okay.
It has been standard practice to add them. I will just say, regardless of the condition being added or not, per city ordinances, a construction management plan would be required regardless. So, but yes, we can absolutely add it.
Okay,
Thank you.
those are my questions.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Miranchov.
So I will start with my question and my opinion on this project, and mainly on the parking. Obviously, this is the problem. So I have worked with several companies for traffic and parking studies, including KLOA, or as we know it, CLOA. In case that we have two conflicting studies, I'm really confused because we don't have a real basis to believe one or the other. So how shall we determine that really 28 parking spaces are needed, they are not needed at all, or there is maybe 8 parking spaces needed? We cannot do that. And I'm confused. For me, this is a hurdle that I somehow cannot overcome in my thinking. The second thing, I believe that there could be more options if these parking spaces are needed. I would agree with some of the speakers that a really viable, for me, option to use street parking on McDaniel was not explored enough. Third, this place is part of my morning routine. I am there every morning, and I can see everything around, and it's a beautiful place. And I would say the management and whoever takes care of this place, it is very well maintained, it's beautiful, it's great. And I know that the care is good too, because I have friends that have relatives there. But I somehow cannot imagine how this parking will take a big chunk of the beauty of this space. So having in mind all these 3 things, I'm more leaning towards advising for additional work on this space than recommending it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Commissioner Johnson?
I don't have questions, but like Commissioner Mirichev, I have some comments and thoughts pertaining to, more broadly speaking, purposes and policies of the adopted comp plan, the negative cumulative effect, and the traffic congestion question in a more broad sense. I mean, we've heard a lot of the details from those that testified, and I appreciate all the detailed information from both sides. But let's start with the comp plan. This is, as it has been noted tonight, this is very unusual for us to hear a case where a developer is asking for parking far in excess of what is required or recommended. It's usually the other direction. And so I think Commissioner Berlin said something about dissonance. Like, yeah, I'm having a little dissonance here because this is like the flip side of what we usually consider. And it's usually the residents pushing for, no, make this apartment building, build way more parking, don't let them go way below what's required. But our comp plan really philosophically nudges in the other direction and pushing for retaining open space and protecting green space and not over paving and oversupplying parking, which is what Evanston's done for really generations and what America has done really for generations. There is a balance that we have to look at as far as if there's not enough parking on site, and we don't know how that's going to play out, right? I mean, none of us has a crystal ball. We have projections, and this is great. But if there's not enough parking on site and some cars are pushed from on-site to street parking, in this project or any parking, just in a theoretical sense, is that a negative cumulative effect versus the special uses that are in the immediate neighborhood? So are there other places in this neighborhood that push excess parking into the neighborhood streets that don't accommodate that parking on site? And is there not enough excess capacity on the streets to accommodate that excess parking? And I know that's like a question with like 8 clauses in it, but like Carol mentioned, I'm in that neighborhood quite often. I've gone over there just to, to do my own dashboard survey, pedestrian survey, and there is a lot of excess parking capacity on the neighborhood streets. And I know some residents, some parts of the city really don't like their available spaces in front of their house taken up by non-residential uses, right? A lot of people that come to our meetings say, I want to be able to park in front of my own house, make that building accommodate all their parking on site. But these neighbors are saying the opposite. They're saying, let those dozen or so cars spill out onto the street. We would rather have that, or in other words, that would be less of a negative effect to have these dozen or so cars spill out onto the street, less negative than paving over a part of this facility's front yard, side yard, et cetera. So, we're weighing, what is worse? What is more negative to the neighborhood to have that excess parking spill out onto the street? How much excess parking is it? Is it a dozen cars? Is it 100 cars? Is it 1,000 cars? We're talking about not very many cars. And then is there capacity, in this neighborhood are there available spaces on the street to accommodate those cars? Yeah, there's a lot of capacity over there. And then, the third thing I wanted to just mention or just ruminate on is the cause of trying to avoid causing undue traffic congestion. So we can think about traffic congestion in 2 ways. We can think about consolidating all the parking in one spot. We're going to have congestion in one spot. Localized in one spot, we're going to have more congestion in one place. Versus if we spread the parking out and some of that parking spills out into the neighborhood streets, you will have a similar amount of congestion, but it will be distributed out amongst the adjacent streets, maybe an adjacent block or so. So again, it's not a cut and dry answer which way causes less traffic congestion. But in my review of these documents and in my professional opinion, I think distributing that parking, that minimal amount of cars that are going to spill out on the neighbor streets, would be the less negative, impactful way to go as far as that effort to minimize traffic congestion. So I haven't heard anything tonight that has changed my opinion that this project, the parking portion of this project, meets all of our standards.
Thank you. Commissioner Mangum.
I guess I'm really concerned about getting rid of over 11,000 square feet of green space for parking. I know that I guess employees may need parking, but are there other options to deal with this? Like, is there a place where these employees can park and maybe a shuttle could take them to and from the facility? And then also their residents, I think I don't know, we haven't been told, but it seems like maybe some of their residents drive now, but things change and they may not be driving next month or a couple months from now or whatever, based on their population. So I'm not sure how much parking they really need and whether or not green space should be taken away for it.
Thank you. Commissioner Linwall.
Yes, thank you. I'm generally supportive of aspects of the plan, like, the parking proposed along the service drive, the additional spots on off of Pioneer. I'm supportive of the inset parking, the flare at the access drive for along the service drive on Pioneer. My big problem is I don't believe that a 5-foot setback along Colfax is anywhere near appropriate for parking. The setbacks along McDaniel, I think it's 13 feet on for the additional parking spots located along McDaniel. I had suggested or asked a question at the last meeting, about what would happen if the diagonal parking on the north side of the parking drive was eliminated and those spaces were turned into parallel spaces. I think that at a minimum, I can't support the parking portion of this recommendation. I would suggest that a condition requiring at least a 10-foot setback from the property line be adopted and landscaped. One of the suggestions, especially with respect to the potential flooding issue, which may or may not have anything to do with the Three Crowns property, could be devoted to a rain garden or a bioswale or something that minimizes any runoff from the site. So, I mean, other than that, I don't have a big. I think that it's appropriate to and the applicants to be commended for wanting to provide additional surface parking on the site to accommodate their employee needs primarily. But I just, while it's in reviewing the kind of the design guidelines for plan developments, it talks about, at least a transition zone of 10 feet. Now that applies to, property lines not abutting a street, but I think that that's kind of the minimum that should be required. So while I support the applicant's desire to add additional parking spaces on site, I think that the parking lot that's proposed is frankly too big, and I think that it really does interfere and affect the property, the value of the homes immediately adjacent. So when we get to, I let others express their opinion, but I'm going to propose adding a condition requiring at least a 10-foot setback from the property line on Colfax for any parking. If parallel fit spaces can fit in within that space, that's fine. If they can't, so be it.
So just to be clear, you're saying that when it comes time to vote on the proposal, you're only going to vote for a proposal that includes a condition, which then requires a redesign of the parking?
Yeah, we're just basically eliminating the diagonal spaces along Colfax and including a 10-foot setback.
Okay.
And again, we could maybe separate, because all of the other requests I don't have a particular problem with, and I could, we could treat the parking lot separate as a separate vote, or we could do that. But I think that a 5-foot setback, that would allow a parking lot that close to adjacent residential property is inappropriate.
Commissioner Berlin?
So I guess a question I have for fellow commissioners, if anyone's willing to answer it, those of you who are leaning against it, I think one of the things I keep thinking about is, as I see it, we didn't get two different studies, we got two different interpretations of the data. I mean, you can take that or leave that, but we've had this before, right, where we don't agree on a standard because we're all interpreting things differently. But here's what I'm hearing in defense of the project is a company saying yes, we can rely on street parking. This might blow up on us. And if it doesn't, we're still asking workers to stop doing things that might be hard to stop in order to move their car. And I just, generally speaking, I'm not in favor of having more parking lots in this town. I'm not. But I also think each case is on its own. And I just, the thing that gives me pause, and I'm really perplexed on this one, but gives me pause is like, I'm imagining someone who knows they need to help someone get out of bed or whatever, and they also know, because I get ticketed all the time on my street, right, that they're like at risk of getting a $50 ticket if they don't move their car in the next 10 minutes. And like, I think that counts, and I believe them that there's a need here. I mean, they have said it would cost them money. Clearly, this is not something that is easy for them to go after. They have said they can just rely on the street and let the cards fall where they may, right? So that's where I'm also stuck, is that when we're talking about rental housing that's going to have a lot of people under 50, under 40, whatever it is, right? And single family, like, that's not the facility we're talking about here. We are talking about people who, like, I imagine going to visit an elderly relative and I'm trying to walk, 3 blocks in 15 degrees, or I'm older myself and I don't want to slip on the ice, and I'm still thinking through my vote, but I think that this is like, this makes sense to me as a need. That's all. So I just want to point that out.
Thank you. Can I ask a question of staff? Will you just remind us on some of the basics here? What is the requirement for percentage of green space for this project?
There's an impervious surface coverage limitation of 55% for this.
And where are they at?
They're just below that.
So they meet the requirement for, based on the plans we're seeing right now, they meet the requirement for the code required amount of green space.
Correct.
Do you recall how much percentage they beat it by?
Shooting from the hip here, but that's like 1 or 2% below, if I recall.
So they make it. And we determined earlier that the amount of green space being taken up by the parking lot is around 4%. So that's what that seems to be the sort, that 4% is what a lot of the consternation is about. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I have one more question for you guys. We have gotten feedback in the past as a commission when we have been like, we would approve this conditional on A and then or B, and then these are items that are essentially asking for a total rewrite of the design and are beyond our purview and are inappropriate. Other times we can put on conditions that are within our purview. Is this sort of condition of a 10-foot setback? That sounds to me like actually quite a significant condition and not something that they would be in a position to agree to on the spot like that. Is that correct? Like, is this even the type of condition we can?
I'd be wary of placing conditions on our motion that require rework of the design.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we're on the same page. Okay, never mind.
I would also point out to the Land Use Commission, I know that they traditionally view applications as all one package, and it's either approve everything as proposed or deny everything as proposed, or recommend approval or denial. We've heard a lot about, and this is just something to consider, we've heard a lot, I think there's probably a general consensus on support for the ability for Three Crowns to renovate the historic Pioneer building, rehabilitate it, and occupy it with independent living units. And that's one component of the application. We've heard a lot of differing opinions on the proposed parking areas. So in order to, if the Land Use Commission was inclined to allow at least the conversion of the Pioneer building to independent living units, but denial of the parking, we could help talk you through that motion. It would involve approving some portions of the application and recommending denial on others. So I'm happy to, provide further detail if that's a place the Land Use Commission wants to explore as far as a recommended motion in that regard, but just throwing it out there for consideration in case that helps.
Do any commissioners object to that idea? Okay. Then yes, we would like to go forward with that approach in order to better reflect the opinions up here about the project as a whole versus the parking in the northwest corner.
So to be clear, this parking area would be the only area that would not be approved. These parking areas would be approved. These would be approved subject to approval by the Director of Public Works, same with the curb cut expansion, and then the changes here and here. All of this would require an amendment to the PD. This parking technically requires a site development allowance for parking in a front yard off of Pioneer. So that's why it requires an amendment to the PD. But if that's what the Land Use Commission is interested, then the action would be to recommend to the City Council approval of an amendment to Special Use Ordinances 67072, 67081, 115082, and 112083 to allow renovation and conversion of the Pioneer Building into independent living units, along with an amendment to the PD ordinance 33005 to allow modifications to the previously approved development plan for the parking lot on the east side of the site, and changes to the Pioneer Road right-of-way, along with the site development allowance to allow parking in a front yard along Pioneer Road, and then a recommendation on denial for all other portions of the requested zoning approvals in this application.
And essentially, by splitting this up into two different motions, we would have to review the standards separately.
Yes, you'd have to review both the PD and special use standards.
But I mean, the set of all those standards twice.
Sure. Yeah, for the one.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for the rejection and for the approval.
Got a question. If I were to make a motion to add a condition requiring at least a 10-foot setback along Colfax, and that was added as a condition, would that not in effect eliminate the parking on the north side of the drive?
Well, this parking would still be in the.
That would be fine. And the parking along.
Well,
the parking along McDaniel has got a 13-foot setback.
Yeah, they could, in theory. There's a lot of different ways they could address that. I suppose they could explore whether parallel parking in this area here maintains a 10-foot setback.
And that would be fine with me. I mean, my interest is, I believe that there should be more of a setback along Colfax to not impact the neighborhood. I believe that as shown, the project has an adverse impact on neighboring properties. So I don't believe that standard is met.
Why don't we discuss that potential condition when we get to that second part of that vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you ask us if, you said, we all agreed we can pursue it this way.
Right.
Splitting it up.
So-
Let's pursue it. Let's do it.
We're going to pursue a motion right now for all parts of the application without the northwest lot.
Can you just hold for like a second? Could you just hold for like a second?
That is something you'd have to ask the chair.
A second, because this is the first time, and we appreciate Commissioner Lindwall in their position, but this is honestly the first time like staff has like made like a recommendation. So it's a little bit frustrating.
Well, we haven't gotten to that part yet.
Well, no, but we're looking at seeing whether or not we could incorporate the 10-foot.
We're trying to be responsive here. We're trying to see. If
Okay,
we
and you can do that
incorporate it.
while we pursue the motion for the main part.
No, well, if it can be accommodated with the 10-foot setback, then we can have the condition that we can put on the whole thing.
can still split it. Let's keep going
Okay. Yeah. So I was getting the impression that this was like, it's like either or. That's all. And that's what it sounded like the opinion was. So that's the reason why I didn't want us to basically like lose this, because then we go on to the next step. That's all. That's the reason why, and I apologize for interfering. because
Losing
this
anything.
is-
Okay, Sam, can you help us make that motion?
Well,
Is the motion you're making to approve everything as proposed except require a 10-foot setback here?
No, we're separating out, the content of the application. One is the parking in northwest corner as its standalone, as a standalone item versus everything else.
So you would want to recommend approval to the city council, approval of an amendment to the special use ordinances 67O-72, 67O-81, 115O-82, 112O-83 to allow renovation and conversion of the Pioneer Building into independent living units, along with elimination of condition of approval number 3D in ordinance 67O-72 and 67O-81, along with an amendment to the plan development ordinance 33O-05 to allow modifications to the previously approved development plan and modifications to the conditions of approval as outlined in the staff report.
and do we also have to have a approval of the extension of the existing 6-foot solid fence and continuation of allowing the abutting pergola on the north side of the Landstrom Manor building? I believe that was one of the.
Yes, I mean, I guess I'm a little confused as to what direction you're going. You're wanting to
Approve everything else,
approve everything,
but that parking.
but a condition of approval to have the
Oh,
parking.
no, I don't, no.
No
I'm just
condition.
saying that what I had written out is, in the case of 26 PLND-006, the Three Crowns Park PD and S special use amendment, the Land Use Commission recommends that the City Council approve an amendment to Plan Development Ordinance 330-005 to allow for the conversion of the Pioneer Court Building to 23 independent living units and the following site development allowances. Approval of an extension of the existing 6-foot solid fence and continuation of the abutting pergola on the north side of Landstrom Manor, allowing parking in the front yards of McDaniel, and we'll set aside Colfax Street for the moment, and Pioneer Yard and Pioneer Road, which I think are two things you had to do. And then I would like to say this Land Use Commission supports construction of new inset parking stalls on the west side of Pioneer Road and widening of the vehicle service drive apron along Pioneer Road, subject to the approval of the Director of Public Works. Correct?
Sure.
And I guess the amendment of the condition B on allowing a second parking exit on Colfax would be put off to the second vote. With respect to ordinance 67O-72, repeal of condition 3D. That's the lot area, that's the FAR.
I think we really have to, for the plan development, look at it and review it as a whole. I think getting into the weeds on the individual site development allowances and the amendments is not taking into consideration the bigger picture. That's my opinion. My recommendation would be to, as Sam said before, to make a decision on the plan development and special use together or separate them out. But I think that, adding, if you want to explore adding the condition for a 10-foot setback, I would advise the commission to ask that of the applicant to make sure that that is a condition that might satisfy them or that they think that they could work with as they proceed to city council. But I would not recommend carving up all the different site development allowances for approval.
Well, I was just enumerating the ones that all should be approved, was what I was trying to do. Because there are three different ordinances that all have to be amended. Am I correct?
Sam gave us the language. Sam already told us how to do it.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure, because one of the requests was the 6-foot fence and the pergola, which I haven't heard anyone have a problem with. And I just wanted to make sure that in addition to the inset parking and the canopy, all the other pieces, that was approved.
It's a good question. But I think if we're saying, it sounds to me like we are saying as a commission that we would like to split this into two pieces. I defer to you, Max, right? We want to just carve out the parking in the northwest corner because that seems like it's not going to get past us tonight. And it seems like everyone's ready to recommend approval for the rest. And Sam, it was sounding like you were giving us language. I'm happy to just dictate it and then one of us can say it if that's what we need to do. And I think then we vote on everything but the parking, and then we vote separately on the parking. That's what I understood you guys
Why can't the motion just be for approval of the amendment to the plan development ordinance and the amendment to the special use ordinances as described in the packet, with the exception of the northwest corner parking lot?
Sure, you could make that motion. You could make that motion. It does lack some specificity, but that would be sufficient, I suppose, to make a viable motion.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify something with staff. Would that be sufficient for staff's purposes in terms of clarity about what has been approved?
I understand what's being approved, what they're wanting to do, yes.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead with that motion. Sure.
Okay. I will second that motion to approve everything but the parking lot in the northwest corner. And then we will revisit that.
Can somebody just make a motion that clarifies what is being voted on and then second that? I just heard you seconding a motion, but I didn't hear the original motion.
Okay, I'll make it. I move that we recommend approval to the city council for the amendment to the plan development ordinance and the amendments to the special use ordinances as described in the packet, with the exception of anything pertaining to the new proposed parking lot in the northwest corner.
I'll second.
I think it has to be more specific to what Sam said earlier. Basically, I think you do have to probably list the different ordinances that are being changed.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Otherwise, I think it becomes unclear what exactly the motion is, what we're approving, what's denied, and it could be misinterpreted.
Help me understand what's unclear.
when Sam said it, he mentioned 67-0-72, 67-0-81. He also mentioned sections of the code that would be, I guess, changed for them. So I think we should list those out so it's more clear.
I mean, I can read the whole paragraph on page 1 and 2 of the packet, which is the same thing. Would that help?
It would help to repeat what Mr. Hubbard said.
I can repeat a specific, I mean, you have a motion on the table. Did it get a second?
It did.
It did get a second. So I feel like a vote should take place. If that vote fails or if that vote passes is one thing. If it fails, I can certainly, we can take a 5-minute recess and I can write out a specific specific language. But if that motion passes, there would be no need.
I hear the point. Although, in the interest of time and the people's time here, I do think there's a sufficient level of clarity on what that motion is. And I feel confident enough that we can vote in order to take care of that large chunk of the case tonight and then move on to how to handle the parking. If you disagree, that's okay. You can still vote however you want.
To follow up, sorry to interrupt, I think staff understands what the intent of the Land Use Commission is, and we can certainly craft that language into any ordinance of approval that will go before the City Council.
Okay.
So are we effectively punting on the parking lot for City Council to figure out? So our recommendation will.
No, we're going to vote on that next.
That's next. Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
Okay, and I understand there's a degree of clarity in this room, which we may be comfortable with, but I would be more comfortable, because this will go to City Council, just to have the motion read. Because we heard Mr. Hubbard give language. There was a general motion made to support what Mr. Hubbard said, and then a second. So if we could, I would feel more comfortable if it was just read before we do our roll call vote. And we don't have to take a recess.
Would you feel comfortable if staff read it?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
The motion on the table is
To recommend to the City Council approval of an amendment to Special Use Ordinances 67072, 67081, 115082, and 112083 to allow renovation and conversion of the Pioneer Building into independent living units, along with elimination of condition of approval 3D in Ordinance 67072 and Ordinance 67081, along with an amendment to Planned Development Ordinance 33-0-05 to allow modifications to the previously approved development plan, including a site development allowance to allow parking in a front yard along Pioneer Road, and a site development allowance to allow a fence and pergola structure in a front yard along Colfax. I think that captures it.
Yeah, the repeal of the FAR is condition 3D in 670-72 and 670-81. However, I think you also need to include modification of condition 6 to eliminate the reference to the type of parking lot screening required. And that would happen in ordinance 670-72.
All right.
Is that correct?
That sounds correct.
Did I miss anything else?
Okay. I'm sorry, sir.
No. He just said they can.
I'm sorry, sir. The public comment is closed. Okay. Do you feel satisfied?
Thank
Do you feel satisfied?
Yes, and I think it's important that it's clear
Yes.
because this case could end up in court or there needs to be a record. So yes, it's clear now.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, with that, the motion's on the table. It's been seconded. I think we do need the standards.
Yes.
Okay, now that everyone is clear on the motion on the table, please keep that in mind as you consider the standards being read now. Okay, for the Land Use Commission to recommend the City Council grant an amended special use, the Land Use Commission must find that the proposed special use, one, is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. That has been confirmed. Number two, it's in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. It's obviously enhancing a huge elderly care institution and as a service to the city of Evanston. Number three, will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types on the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. The construction as contained within this proposal, this motion, is not drastically expanding the footprint or doing anything abnormal outside the footprint of the project. Number four, does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. For the motion we haven't heard any evidence to that. Can be adequately served by public facilities and services. We haven't heard any evidence to that point, that it would not be able to. Does not cause undue traffic congestion. So again, we're not talking about the parking lot, but only the scope of the motion we made. In fact, the opposition is happy to have more congestion. Okay. Number seven, preserves significant historical and architectural resources. We haven't heard any evidence that it needs to do that. Number eight, preserves significant natural and environmental features. There's actually quite a lot in the original plan about their adherence to policies and goals within the Climate Action Plan. It complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances, except to the extent such regulations have been modified through the plan development process or the grant of a variation. And we've heard evidence of substantial compliance. Okay, there's one more set of standards. For the Land Use Commission to recommend that the City Council grant an amended planned development with the requested site development allowances, the Land Use Commission must find, one, the requested site development allowance will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties that is beyond a reasonable expectation, given the scope of the applicable site development allowances of the planned development location. We haven't heard any evidence to that effect for the scope of the motion we're making right now. Number two, the proposed development is compatible with the overall character of existing development in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. We've heard evidence that is consistent. The development site circulation is designed in a safe and logical manner to mitigate potential hazards for pedestrians and vehicles at the site and in the immediate surrounding area. Also, nothing challenged. Number four, the proposed development aligns with the current and future climate and sustainability goals of the city. We saw evidence of all those key features in the original packet. And lastly, number five, public benefits that are appropriate to the surrounding neighborhood and the city as a whole will be derived from the approval of the requested site development allowances. Again, that was also detailed in the original packet. Okay, with that, Mr. Bebo, can we please have a vote?
All right. Commissioner Arevalo? Commissioner Berlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris-Free? Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lindwall?
Yes.
Commissioner Mambadi? Commissioner Mangum?
Yes.
Commissioner Marinchev?
Yes.
And Chair Pucktell?
Yes. So 6-0, that motion passes. And we now move to the final portion of the plan development that we carved out originally in that motion, which is the applicable changes needed in order to make a recommendation for the parking lot on the northwest corner. I guess I will just say that I understand the intent of the 10-foot setback condition, but I'm very wary of making placing a condition for a design change at this moment. We are a recommending body to the city council, and I think we can have a note, accompanying our discussion about that as an idea. But I'm very wary, and I almost wonder if it's inappropriate for us to be making that kind of design change into something we're recommending right now.
I would defer to staff in terms of the enormity of the design change, but I think that generally it is a bad idea to be making changes from the dais like that.
I would also agree.
Well, I think, again, I think that it is important, if that change is not made, then I will be a no vote on this particular thing because I don't believe the standards are met. My preference would be even a wider setback, but I think that 10 feet is reasonable and would accommodate, continue to accommodate a number of the spaces along McDaniel and the spaces closest to the Landstrom building. So,
and that's fine. And the applicant can choose what they want to do between now and when they go before city council. If it's up to them to make a change or not, they've heard it. It's a fine idea. But right here, right now, I think we need to vote on the proposal in front of us.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to ask a question of council, whether or not procedurally we can do that. Or alternatively, can this be entered and continued? Because if we can't do it between now and city council, then we'd have to start all over again.
My recommendation to the Land Use Commission would be to vote on the proposal before you.
Right.
Well, can I just respectfully get an answer to that procedural question? I mean, it's kind of relevant. You have the discretion.
We're going to vote. We're going to vote on the proposal in front of us.
I have a question. If and again, there's no, my, suggestion to add a condition may not even get a second. But if it were added, the council has the ability to, eliminate that condition during their approval, do they not?
They do. Yeah, they do have the ability to eliminate that condition. They also, if the applicant desires to, after the end of this land use commission hearing and before city council, if they decide that they want to willingly make that change to their plans, they can work with us to do that. It won't increase the degree of a site development allowance. It would go the opposite way. And so they would be able to do that as well if they desired.
Thank you. That was the only question that I had asked. I'm just simply asking whether or not the opportunity would be lost, because it would be futile to actually start all over again to try to basically do that. That's why I asked the question.
If they attempted to address the 10-foot question, regardless of what gets done tonight, because it does not increase the degree of site development allowance that was requested tonight, it gets you more into compliance. We would be able to allow you to proceed to city council without having to start over.
Thanks for answering my question.
No problem.
I appreciate it.
Isn't this a problem with the notification to neighbors?
It's not. If they were going to change any of the site development allowances to where the impact was going to be greater than what they showed tonight, then they would have to renotice. We would have to do this all over again. But if they were to do, as I just said a minute ago, if they were willing to try to get to the 10-foot setback or a greater setback, we would be able to just go to city council with that, since it's a lesser site development allowance than what's being requested. Yeah, and it's already been noticed for.
But all due respect, the idea is out there. I mean, it's not a bad idea, so you guys can hear it. I don't think, I mean, we have legal counsel saying don't do it, we have staff saying don't do it, we have a chair saying not to do it, so I think we should, they have heard it.
Okay.
And,
I would
you
like
know.
to entertain a motion for the parking lot in the northwest corner as it is currently described in the proposal. And I'd like to hear that.
I will second that motion.
No, you have to make it.
You didn't just make.
No, he entertained a motion.
My computer. Can I read your? I'm sorry, everyone. I know everyone is tired. I'm
No,
sorry.
just ask that recommend approval of the parking lot as described. And
I recommend approval of the parking lot as described at the Three Crowns site.
And the associated, oh, I'm sorry, I should probably do it. Recommend approval of the parking lot at the, as proposed on the Three Crowns Park, and amendment of ordinance, I don't remember, is it 670-72, which allows parking along McDaniel and Colfax? Or is that's 670-81 that allows parking?
They both have required setbacks for parking along Colfax and
McDaniel. So they have to be amended too.
Correct. And the plan development would need to be amended to allow for the site development allowances from the zoning code.
Okay.
So did I make an adequate recommendation or no?
No, that was split between two commissioners.
All right. You want to make the recommendation?
Sure. Okay, all right. I move approval of the parking lot along McDaniel and Colfax as presented in the plan, and amendment of the plan development ordinance and ordinances 670-72 and 670-81 to allow parking in the front yard along McDaniel and Colfax, the addition of a second curb cut exit on Colfax, and is there anything else that has to be?
And the three site development allowances.
And the 3 site development allowances.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions from commissioners? Okay, is everyone clear on what we're voting on?
Mhm.
Okay.
But you have to go through the standard.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now, please keep that motion in mind as I go through the standards. For the Land Use Commission to recommend that the City Council grant an amended special use, the Land Use Commission must find that the proposed special use is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. I believe that has been confirmed. It is in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. I didn't really comment much yet tonight, but I'm going to say that this is met. I feel like even though it doesn't meet, the parts about maintaining green space, that is overwhelmingly offset by the need of the employees providing care at the facility, which is more in line with the comprehensive general plan of high quality services that are being provided in the city of Evanston.
And Mr. Chair, my interpretation is that it goes the other direction, that yes, I recognize that it does have these offsets, but I don't think that the parking that we're discussing is in keeping with the purposes and policies of Envision Evanston as adopted.
Okay. Number 3, will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types on the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city of whole. Again, the key words here are, negative cumulative effect, and this goes along with the same comment from before about how although neighbors feel like they will suffer due to a lack of green space, the well-functioning of the operations of Three Crowns swings that balance in favor of having the parking.
I disagree with that finding. I believe that the proposed 5-foot setback along Colfax is inadequate. And that will constitute a negative cumulative impact on property, the residential property on the north side of Colfax.
Thank you. Number 4, does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. Although lack of green space would be nice, I've not seen tonight any objective evidence of property values being diminished because of this.
Again, I respectfully disagree. I believe that having parking located within 5 feet from the property line will have a impact on the value of property across the street.
Number 5, can be adequately served by public facilities and services. We have not seen evidence that it will be unable to be adequately served. Number 6, does not cause undue traffic congestion. If anything, this takes cars off the street. Number 7, preserves significant historical and architectural resources. I'll say that's not applicable. Number 8, preserves significant natural and environmental features. Obviously, we are losing green space, but the key operative word here is significant. There are some trees and turf, but I wouldn't consider that significant.
Well, I'll respectfully disagree in that the application of the tree preservation ordinance is going to require 62 additional trees be planted, so I think that there are some significant environmental features that will be removed. Granted, they will be mitigated by the application of the tree preservation ordinance.
Number 9, complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances, except to the extent such regulations have been modified through the plan development process or the grant of a variation. I believe this has been confirmed as well. Next set, for the Land Use Commission to recommend that the City Council grant an amended plan development with the requested site development allowances, the Land Use Commission must find, 1, the requested site development allowances will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use and enjoyment of property values of adjoining properties that is beyond a reasonable expectation given the scope of the applicable site development allowances of the plan development location. This is obviously a pretty subjective standard. I don't think this is a substantial adverse impact to have a parking lot across the street.
Again, I'll respectfully disagree that I think that the proposal to have parking with only a 5-foot setback along Colfax means that the standard is not met.
Number 2, the proposed development is compatible with the overall character of existing development in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. There is parking all over the property. So I'd say that is met.
But if we consider the immediate vicinity of the subject property, the houses across the street, they're not permitted to have parking in their front yards. In fact, the our ordinances require parking all over the city in residential areas to be pushed to the back, access via the alley, and screened from the front by the house itself. So having parking in a front yard is, I would just disagree that it does. It is very incompatible with the overall character of the existing development in the immediate vicinity.
Thank you. Number 3, the development site circulation is designed in a safe and logical manner to mitigate potential hazards for pedestrians and vehicles of the site and in the immediate surrounding area. We've seen that developed by the parking consultant to have a logical flow in the surrounding streets. Number 4, the proposed development aligns with the current and future climate and sustainability goals of the city. It does eliminate green space, but again, this is being viewed in the context of the project as a whole, which has many sustainable features listed in the original packet.
And Mr. Chair, just I guess I would reference my earlier comment that I don't think the standard is met because of the removing the green space and that being against the city's climate and sustainability goals and the goals of the comprehensive plan.
Number 5, public benefits that are appropriate to the surrounding neighborhood and the city as a whole will be derived from the approval of the requested site development allowances. Those public benefits are listed in the original packet as well. Okay, those are the standards. Mr. Bebo, can we please have a vote?
Commissioner Aravalo, Commissioner Berlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris-Furry, Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Lindwall,
No.
Commissioner Mabadi, Commissioner Mangum,
No.
Commissioner Marinchev,
No.
and Chair Pucktell.
Yes. So that motion fails 2-4. So we will not be recommending approval of that portion of the project to City Council. That concludes that case. Thank you very much for all the time and effort you spend here tonight. You can work with city staff on next steps for when you'll see City Council. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to public comment on the agenda. I do have 3 people signed up to speak. Are those people still here and wanting to make a comment? Seeing none, we can move to staff updates.
None.
No staff updates. In that case, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain? We are adjourned. Thank you.